Recording in progress.
Ready? All right, I'll call to order the Town of Mount Desert Planning Board meeting for November 9th, 2022. Welcome aboard. So we are still in hybrid territory here where we've got partial board members in present here in the meeting room, and we've got
familiarity.
Dave and Gloria online, and I'll make introductions. Myself, William Hanley, I'm chair. We've got Meredith Randolph.
In the flexibility of our and
We've
how
got Tracy Loftus,
data that's all around.
Dave Ashmore. Hi, Dave. Hi, Gloria.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
And you know, I'm sure we're all familiar with Zoom right now, but I'll give the little Zoom or speech protocol, whatever you want to call it. If you are online, please log into chat and just, sign in, enter your names. We have a record of who's online. The Zoom, the hearing is being recorded through Zoom. We've got a camera, obviously, in the meeting room as well. We can have up to 500 participants if they so choose to join us. And I would ask that if you do have public comment, please just raise your hand or try to get our attention through Zoom, and don't have side discussions in chat. And that's about it. So let's get going. So first item on the agenda, the minutes for approval. And those are the minutes from, not from the 26th. Yeah, it's the 26th.
Yeah, it's 26.
If anybody cares to make a motion about the,
Tracy Keller, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 26th as presented.
Meredith Randolph, I'll second that.
all right, all those in favor, Tracy,
Tracy Keller, aye.
Meredith,
Randolph, aye.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
and
That's it.
that's it.
For yourself.
And you,
And myself. Aye. And probably said, was I at the 26th?
he wasn't at the 12.
I would, yeah.
And Liz. Okay.
The other thing is, shouldn't we vote Gloria on as a voting member, since there's only 3 of us?
You got 4, you got Dave.
I got
You don't
4.
need her,
Okay,
but you can have her. No, sorry, that sounded bad.
We don't need her.
That's not what I meant. You can certainly sign, if you want her to be a participant.
Gloria, would you like to participate?
Sure. Or Kim, you want me to log off? I can also do that. I'm just
Oh.
sure,
I
I can. Either way, I'm happy to.
well,
Whatever you need, yeah.
it'd be wonderful to have you on as a voting member tonight, Gloria, and
All right.
somebody will make a motion to do so.
Meredith Randolph, I make a motion to vote for Gloria to be a voting member this evening.
Tracy Keller, second.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, aye.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, aye.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
self, William Hanley, aye. Welcome aboard. All right. Let's keep rolling the train down the tracks. All right,
Tracy.
switch here. All right, item 3 on the agenda tonight, we've got a conditional use approval application. This is a continuation from October 12th, 2022. This is conditional use approval application 12/2022, name Mount Desert Water District. Agent is Paul Slack, the general manager. Location is starting at the fountain in Route 3, running down Steamboat Wharf Road to Seal Harbor Library in Seal Harbor. And the zones are conservation C, resource protection, shoreline zoning 1 and shoreline zoning 2. Purposes, public utilities, replacement of an existing 6-inch year-round water main line with a 10-inch year-round water main line. And, you know, just to clarify, I wasn't at the 10-12 hearing for this. I did watch the Zoom recording of the hearing, as well as read the meeting notes and signed the affidavit and returned it today. So feel like I'm fully capable of sitting in the captain's chair here. So, and with that, this being a continuation there was a request from the board to submit engineered drawings. We have received engineered drawings from the applicant, and with that, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you.
And what would you like to?
How about first, just for the record, talk about the additional submittal that was provided to the board at the board's request, that Header Fine Engineering is generated. We can just essentially summarize kind of the project quickly and the additional submission, if we could.
So at the last planning board meeting, determined the planning board requested that we provide detailed engineering drawings. We had to go out and expedite that process and get somebody to do that. We did that and presented them back to the board. And presumably, I'm thinking that the board needed those engineering drawings so that they would more fully understand the project. I hope that happens.
Well, we'll find out tonight. And so we've got a set of 3 drawings submitted from.
Also, Bill,
Yeah.
sorry. So at the last meeting, it was also stated that it appeared that everything that was required in that 26 page,
Conditional use application.
that board member didn't see anything crazy that they needed to have added to it. We did make some modifications to those statements based upon engineering drawings that we had done by our engineer. So there's some slight modifications that we wanted to make them consistent.
So we have the resubmitted conditional use application as part of the additional information provided to the board as of the last hearing on this on the 12th. And so, I mean, why don't we just jump right into opening it up for public comment?
Sure.
And so I'll open it up for public comment and,
Also,
yeah,
back up, sorry. This was not advertised and or butters notified because this was a continuation with a date certain.
thank you.
Just to let you know.
Yeah. All right, and so open for public comment. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll jump right in. Good evening. My name is Travis Noyes. I'm with Haley Ward. I'm here tonight on behalf of Abby Simpson and Todd Midland, property owners at 11, 13, and 19 Steamboat Road. Also, just want to point out that my clients are fully supportive of the Ringing Point Road project that has been previously approved by this board. Their concern, however, and we've been working together as a team along with their counsel, Eaton Peabody, reviewing plans for a number of quite a while now. Their concern is that this really is a water main extension project that's being approved in three separate chunks, if you will. So the initial approval was for the Ringing Point Road project. And then subsequent to that was the Valentine property extension. And now we're coming in with the beginning of the project, if you will. So the overall concern that has been brought up is that essentially we do not believe that there's really been a review an adequate enough review of the impact of this water main extension as a water main extension as it truly is. So there's really been no analysis to look at, or at least none that we've been able to discern from the information we reviewed, to determine how this main will be operated. It's an extension of a year-round main. There is still seasonal main in that area. But what is to happen with some of the appurtenances and features along that main? I have a presentation here I'd like to go over, if you don't mind giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit here on behalf of my client, and we can go from there. Maybe Paul can jump in and answer some of the questions as we go along, or maybe his engineer can. So,
Well, a question I have,
am I still allowed to continue though, since I have the floor, or?
Yes.
Or I mean, I just don't, I don't want to get sidetracked from where I'm starting.
Yeah,
here, Paul.
Paul, let's let him make his presentation first, and then we can bounce questions off him. And I believe you submitted some documents tonight too. I don't know if the public has copies of that, if needed, Paul.
The public would like to look, I have some extra copies up front here. I have a plan which essentially shows the three elements of the overall water main extension, if you will, and then a sort of a PowerPoint in 8.5 by 11 format.
And Travis, remember, we've got two members in the public online as well, so as best as you can orientate your presentation to them too, please do.
A lot of it will be verbal, so I'm just gonna speak to the best that I can. So just in summary, the information that we've reviewed the Ringing Point LLC Mountain Desert Water District co-application that was approved in 2021. So we've looked at the planning board minutes from March 24th, 21. We reviewed, like I mentioned, the CUA co-application, and we also reviewed their engineered plans that were presented on February 19th, 2021. In addition to that, we've reviewed the Hughes Valentine application, which was conditionally approved in 2022. We've reviewed a letter from the Water District that states that planning board's conditional approval of the CUA application had been fulfilled. We reviewed the planning board minutes from the 10/12/22 planning board meeting. We reviewed their application as well as the engineered plans. And then for the project that I'm speaking about, so to speak, here tonight, just giving me the opportunity through public hearing to talk about this, is the recent application for the Mountain Desert Water District. We reviewed the application, which was continued or not approved. We reviewed the non-engineered plans, so everything that was submitted by the district initially, and then the engineered plans tonight, as well as the minutes from October 12th. So what I'm going to do is jump right into some of the project details here. Again, I want everybody to understand my client. We are looking at this as a three-phase water main extension. So it is important to look at the comprehensive overall aspects of the project from our perspective. So the Steamboat Wharf Water Main Project, the one that's being presented tonight by the Mountain Desert Water District, essentially indicates that the water main will be installed in the same trench where the water main exists today. So there's a 6-inch diameter water main that will be replaced by a 10-inch diameter water main. So essentially you're going to go into the same trench and put a main right next to it. So one of the concerns there, obviously, is temporary water. How will that be handled? Talk about that in a little bit. Interestingly, the plans show that this design is going to be a 10-inch diameter HDPE main. So you're effectively not getting a 10-inch diameter main. It'll end up being somewhere in the 8.5-inch interior diameter main, because it's just the way that ductile iron pipe is side versus polyethylene pipe. So the other project elements have specified ductile iron, I believe, but this one has polyethylene. And then plan indicates the existing services will be replaced with 1-inch services to the right of way. The Ringing Point Waterline project includes about 1,000 feet of 10-inch ductile iron water main. It indicates an existing 4-inch seasonal water line that is adjacent to the main will remain. Haven't really heard from the water district, and maybe Paul can elaborate on that tonight, why the seasonal main will remain in operation. And there is one proposed fire hydrant that will be installed at the end of the project. And then obviously the Valentine Residence Project, which includes a 90 linear foot water main extension beyond the Ringwood Point project. Two of the projects are requiring 5 feet of cover. One of the projects is requiring 4.5 feet of cover. So it's somewhat inconsistent. The items of concern, as I've noted, there really has been no information provided on the integrated approach to operate the water main. There are a series of, as I mentioned, there's seasonal main, there's year-round main, there are blow-offs. There are pertinences that there's really been given no information to us in terms of how this main will be operated, what blow-offs will be required, how it will be maintained. I do want to point out the main itself will be installed in very close proximity to underground electric. That is near the front end of the project, down near the fountain. It's going to be placed very close to that. So again, it's just a concern from installation and long-term maintenance. I know Paul and his crew understand this because of all the work that we've done recently on Main Street. The water main itself is currently proposed close to homes and private improvements. So when I say water main, keep in mind, I'm talking about the entire project. So, some of the project that will be installed with the Ringing Point project will be in front of and very close to some of these homes. And so on some of the work that the Mountain Desert Water District will be doing. So again, there's just concerns relative to construction there. Some of the main will be installed where there is currently no trench. So you've all driven there perhaps. I mean, it's tight, it's rocky, it's ledgy. Very likely there will be ledge removal required. And it should be anticipated. There have been a lot of, homes built very close to the water, right on the water, very close to the road. And I know that, our clients, for instance, have spent a considerable sum of money to shore up and rehabilitate and manage their own personal property. So putting a water main this close to their property is a concern. So I want to make sure that it's thoughtful and done right. As I mentioned, so when you look at the Valentine property, the other interesting note is that there's a conflict there. The Valentine property design plans indicated in a detail that there would be a 4-inch main extension, but then a water district letter confirmed that it would have to be a 10-inch main extension. The other concern we noted with Valentine, so the Valentine property is at the end of this water main extension. And there's on the design plan, there was a word written in hand written note that said blow off. But we can presume, we're assuming that a blow off will be placed on that property. We don't know anything about that blow off. The size, the location, how it was sized. So I've noted here that, when you look into common design standards such as 10 state standards, dead end mains should be equipped with a means to provide adequate flushing. Flushing devices should be sized to provide flows, which will give a velocity of at least 2.5 feet per second. So essentially you need to move sediment or anything that may land in that main. You want to move that through if it's intended for flushing. So of note, if that is truly a 10-inch diameter main, you're looking at essentially needing two 2-inch services, in order to handle that. So again, I haven't seen any analysis from the water district that indicates that they have actually sized it according to any kind of a standard or any kind of thought to that extent has been put into this this extension. There's no detail of the blow off. No detail has been presented, so we don't know what the blow off looks like. A blow off could be a number of things. Is it a hydrant? Is it just a straight pipe into the ground? Is it a straight pipe into the air with a shut off? We don't know. Nothing has been provided at all with respect to that. So moving on, I had mentioned the items that we reviewed, but I also had a conversation with Paul. And really a lot of this gets to, the heart of the matter for my clients as well as, they currently at 13 and 19 Steamboat Wharf Road. Currently, the water district, or let me step back. Currently, there are 2 blow-offs that are discharging onto their property. So those blow-offs, I believe, are both on the seasonal and also on the year-round main. And, you know, I can understand why they may have been there in the past. You know, you typically will put a blow off. Blow offs can be put for a number of reasons. You can put blow offs, you know, to flush the main. You can put blow offs on a main to keep water moving. So when you get large diameter pipe and not many users, you need to move that water. So a lot of times you'll just move water with a blow off. So you just run water through your system. If you don't have much cover and you're afraid of that water main freezing, you'll allow the water to run as well. So there's a number of reasons why you would have a blow off. So I can understand in years past, maybe why a service would have been used as a blow off, but you know, our client really is wondering, you know, why do these two blow offs need to exist with this project? If you're truly going to extend a water main, you know, from the fountain all the way to the Valentine property, it's going to be a year-round main. What's the need for these two blow offs? So I haven't really been able to get good information from the district on the analysis around the blow offs that are proposed, let alone these two blow offs that we believe as engineers, you know, my analysis indicates that we don't need those. They wouldn't need those. That's important to point out. The ownership and maintenance rights of those blow offs to begin with is not really clear. It's not very clear that the district has ownership rights to those. I think that should be noted too. You know, they may have been maintained over the years. But I know that one of the blow offs, in fact, was installed by my client. So I'm not sure if there is any ownership rights that are clearly marked anywhere or they're delineated anywhere that indicates that an ownership transition had occurred. So at any rate, again, just another point to consider. I touched on the blow offs. The only other item I'd point out is that for blow offs, you don't want to create a source of cross contamination. And what that is in the truest form is that you don't want any kind of contamination to go back into your main. You don't want your main or any of your services or any appurtenances to have a source for contamination, whether it's bacterial or anything like that. So you can alleviate that by having what's called an air gap. So, you know, an air gap, if you will, if you can think about like a hydrant comes up, water freely discharges to atmosphere, the air gap is there. So more often than not, you're finding blow offs that are a hydrant style or hydrant form, more so than just a service in the ground that discharges to a sewer or stormwater. In current design standards, that's not allowed. It's just not common practice. So I just want to point that out. I'm going to shift gears quickly here to performance standards. So obviously you as the planning board, I can give you all you want with regard to an engineer dissertation of an analysis of what I and my staff have been able to review from these design plans, but ultimately it comes down to performance standards, really, I think, you know, from a planning board perspective. So I just wanted, you know, some of the planning board standards that you have in your land use ordinance, I'd like for you to just, you know, if you will, just, you know, consider some of these things that I've mentioned tonight with regard to some of the impacts, some of these impacts and how they relate to your performance standards as you're looking to determine whether or not this application is submitted is relevant for approval. You know, right off the bat, will this maintain safe and healthful conditions? You know, I haven't talked a lot about it yet, but you know, we haven't seen a plan for the interim water phase. So if you're going to be installing a water main next to an existing water main, you typically would provide some sort of temporary water. So the residents need to have water at all times. And there's been no plan put forward in the design plan that indicates how they're going to go about doing that. The other concern that I would have anyways, is that, you know, our nights are getting colder. And if the water isn't moving, you know, you got freeze potential. So there's a concern there as well. So again, you know, what's the rush here? Without analyzing all three elements, all three segments together to get an integrated review and an approach, it just seems like something's being slammed in here without any real thought being taken. You know, general performance standards, road, paving plans are closing shortly. Will that be a concern when you're paving these roads, putting pavement back in after installing these mains, if you're gonna be doing it in the winter months, well, not winter months, but the close to winter months of November. What's the impact on town services? You know, the roadway impacts, traffic impacts, the service, electrical service that I just mentioned, and also the water service during the interim. You know, this project runs along the water's edge. What's the concern with erosion control and sedimentation? You know, there's some general notes placed in there, but there's really not a whole lot of information in there respectfully, with respect to how that's gonna be managed. Sticking with performance standards, you know, excavation and filling. You know, again, like I just mentioned, how are we to prevent soil erosion into Seal Harbor? It's not really clear how this plan is gonna go about doing that. The project, because it's going from a 6-inch main to a 10-inch main, it's gonna require more insulation. Is there greater potential for freeze-ups? You know, those things need to be considered. I mentioned earlier, how are they gonna maintain temporary water? And also this all gets harder as time goes on, this time of year. So, moving on to performance standards, 6C2 archaeological sites, are there any archaeological sites? Has that, you know, I'm not sure I've seen any information on that, on whether or not that has been addressed. Are there any nearby that are of concern? You know, I mentioned again, 6C5 essential services. You know, that's going to be installed immediately adjacent to the underground electrical line. There's concern there with that. I don't really see in the plans, the details, any sort of discussion on how to avoid those impacts. So that just is another concern. 6C9 roads and driveways. Again, the water main is currently proposed to be close to homes, private residences. There's really not a lot there in the plans that for me and for my client that suffices to them to know that, you know, understand fully what the impact may be to their property. And then water quality, I talked a little bit about that as well, you know, relative to erosion control and erosion control standards. So I guess, you know, in summary, I'm just gonna leave the board with these final questions that we have. You know, what are the risks of allowing a project like this to be put together, you know, a patchwork format? You know, again, we have looked at all 3 designs. All 3 have different performance characteristics. But it's clear from talking with the water district and looking at the plans, there has not been a review and an integrated approach for this water main extension that really should be done. You know, there are a number of ways to go about doing that. And I just feel like based on our review, you know, it just really begs the town to, or at least the planning board perhaps, to slow down, press pause, look at this main as an integrated project as it is. It really is an extension. There's a lot of questions that are unknown, and work towards understanding what those questions are. You know, I mentioned also, you know, from our concern, and I mentioned it earlier, our client is really, you know, they are supportive of the Ringing Point project. But as these 2 other projects came into the fray, it's clear that there is not an integrated approach that's been taken for these 3 elements. And, you know, specifically relative to the impacts to their property with the loss that exists that we believe do not need to exist moving forward. So, you know, really, again, if we could just slow down, take time and review this project comprehensively, I think that would do all of us good. So with that being said, you know, again, I thank you for your time. I personally would answer any questions you may have relative to my review, both from your standards as it relates to the design and or any questions you may have relative to our concerns related to our review of the design plans. And I know Paul wanted to start off with a question, so maybe Paul can. But at any rate, thank you again for your time. I'm here to answer anything.
All right, thank you. Paul, any follow-up to that?
Well, my original question
Yes,
was, what responsibility does the planning board have with respect to operation of water mains? So a lot of what Travis is bringing up really probably does not apply to the jurisdiction of the planning board. Recently, there was Eaton Peabody has filed an appeal on the Valentine extension. And they were raising questions about Luo and were they being complied with properly with respect to the town Luo program? And that's a valid question. And it's probably should be stated that the Luo should be revised to reflect that the town, who here in the town has any authority, any capability of reviewing water operations? They don't. You know, so when Valentine, for example, opposing his project, and they talked about the design characteristics and was it going to satisfy the water district, who else could prove that? You guys could. I could. So that was my first statement here. And, you know, I just received this plan from Travis walking in here, so I haven't had a chance to thoroughly review this. You know, those are the circumstances. And I took some notes, but to answer each one of his statements, I'd have to pretty much do it one at a time to really properly respond. Some of the statements that were made, he talked about 3 separate projects. Well, why can't there be 3 separate projects? And then he focused on no review of operations of waterways. Again, I don't believe that's something that this planning board really wants to be doing. And he talked about putting our water main next to the other water main, and that's not true. We're replacing the water main. We're pulling out the water main, we're putting in the water main. We raised questions about temporary water on Main Street. Well, Travis was responsible for the plans for Main Street. There were no plans for temporary water on Main Street. It's not a common thing to do. He talked about 10-inch HDPE versus 10-inch ductile. I don't know the point. You know, there's slight variations, like fractions of an inch in terms of pipe size, but it has really no bearing on this project at all, whether it's ductile or HDPE. He's asking questions about why the 4 inches to remain, why not? It's our asset, whether we want to leave it, take it out, that's up to us. He talks about cover of water pipe and variations on theme, and it's a classic thing that you run into those situations where cover could be great and cover might not be as great, and you cover that with by insulating the pipe. And you can do that pretty easily. And I believe that was done on Main Street multiple times. He talked about the proximity to power. Well, look at the Main Street project. The Main Street project for us, I mean, with all the electrical that was buried in that street, and if we did not replace our water main, and we had to go back in that street to excavate that pipe, or to repair that pipe or anything with all that electrical, it would have been virtually impossible, unsafe condition. So we made the determination to go ahead and replace our water main first, and hoping that we never have to go back in that street. But if you're talking about the proximity of electrical water, no better example there. The electrical is existing on the side of the road, and I think that's being highly exaggerated. It's there. You deal with it all the time, and there's a certain distance between that electrical and the water main. That's perfectly allows us to excavate, move the pipe and put it back in. It's a non-issue. Ledge removal. And he's talking about that there's obviously gonna be some ledge removal. I don't know why that's an obvious thing. You're replacing a pipe that's already been placed in the road. We don't expect to remove a lot of ledge. If we do, we're gonna be doing it by mechanical means, which we stated at our last planning board meeting. And he talks about, made big statement about blow-offs, the size of blow-offs and being able to properly flush a main, etc. Well, blow-offs are used for a couple of different things. And one of them is so that you can actually disinfect the main. And one of them is so that you can continually have the ability to improve the water quality in the main. We identified that there's a couple of major issues with the existing main. The existing main is 75 years old. We want to replace that. We want to improve the water quality for those people there. We want to improve the hydrant flow capability for those people there. And yes, Todd extended the water main, 50 feet for his new house. And as a condition of that, he had to put in, call it a blow off. That's true. That was to his benefit, because if he didn't, he'd be stuck on the end of a line with a dead main, and he'd be forced to drink that water. So that was a benefit to him, also to all the rest of the people on that main. And when you're talking about something that's 700 feet long, there's a big difference between something that's 700 feet long and you're talking about a water main extension for Valentine at 90 feet. Because the whole project plan for the Ringing Point project is to replace their 1,000-foot main. They're also extending up into that property a private water main, and they're going to have 700 feet of main, and the water is going to continue to flow by that area. Hardly what I call Valentine extension a major deal for that with respect to being a dead edge. Why is it 10-inch versus 6-inch? Because like Todd, when he extended the water main, he wanted to extend it in the same dimension as to what was there. What if we decided at some point in time, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, to continue that year-round water main and go around that S-curve and go up on top of the hill? Well, would you want to be extending it to a 4-inch main? No, you'd want to be continuing the 10-inch main that you had originally. That's why it was deemed to be a 10-inch main. Travis talked about, and he wasn't here at our first meeting, and he talked about the blow-offs that exist on 13 and 18. And 13 and 18, yes, there's a blow-offs there. Todd bought those houses in 2007, 2008, 9, whatever, sometime in that time frame. And the existing blow-off was there. It's been there for probably 40 years. Nothing that we had installed. We do operate them and maintain them. So if you're looking for ownership, I would say that's our ownership. But what's ironic here is that what Todd is very interested in not having blow-offs operating on his property. Okay, we can all understand that. And what we're trying to do is improve the quality of our water main. That is in his best interest. So if we can replace our water main, if Greg Johnson can do the Ringing Point project and improve that water main, and we have a brand new water main running down there, what does anybody think in this room, without having strong water knowledge, think about the likelihood of us needing to run those blow-offs? Pretty damn low. Am I going to say that we're never going to run them? No, you wouldn't do that. You use blow-offs for a couple of different reasons, and one of them is to disinfect the main. You never know, you could have a water main break in the middle of that main, and then you've got to disinfect it, you're gonna isolate it from both different sides. And how are you gonna disinfect that main? How are you gonna get water in, disinfect it, and get rid of it? You're gonna have to utilize whatever assets that you have in the ground. So do I expect that we're gonna be running those blow-offs hard in the future? No, because there's gonna be another 1,000 to 1,700 feet beyond top. So I really don't understand his desire to really slow down and stop these projects, which is what he's been trying to do. I don't understand the logic there. I really don't. It inhibits the ability for the fire department, which is a huge thing. You know, these projects that I've worked on with Greg Johnston for 2.5, 3 years, you know, getting this thing rolling and off the drawing board. For the first time, there's going to be a hydrant that enables the town to fight fires efficiently. And there's also, when Greg finishes his private water main on Ringing Point, there's going to be another hydrant on the top of Cooksey Drive to be able to fight fires. Town has never had that, never ever. That's huge. You know, I think we talked a little bit before about these temporary water basins, 10,000 gallon water basins at people's houses that they use to accommodate insurance reduction methods. 10,000 gallons for a fire truck that's pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, 10 minutes, it's not really gonna do much. And if there's algae in that tank and it clogs the fire truck just waits a half an hour trying to get this thing going. So year-round fire protection cannot be stated here. There's a very, very important need for that. You know, started talking about performance standards, impacts, LUO. What are you guys supposed to do? You know, tell us how to operate our distribution system. I don't think that's really in your area at all. I agree with the appeal process made by EPP. We have erosion control plans. You've seen what those erosion control plans are. Paving plans. There's accommodations that are made for that. You can use coal patch, or you can use what's called a concrete slurry, if you will, which is something that the state has been doing, which is what we did at the fountain when we had a water main break there a few years ago. A very large area. We started out with coal patch. First time a snow plow truck came by, started wiping it out. We put it back in, wiped it out. We said, this is ridiculous. Because it was a state highway, we went to the state DOT and said, is it okay to go ahead and put concrete in the road? They said, absolutely. Bar Harbor's been doing that for years. We put that concrete slurry in there, had zero problems maintaining that road. I believe that the Ringing Point portion of the project, that's exactly what they're doing this winter time. Same thing. That's the way they get done with the paving plants being shut down. We prefer to have been doing this in September when we first brought this to you guys. That would have been fantastic. Paving plants would have been open. We're now to a point where that's probably unlikely, and the only way we can do that is to maintain the roads through that approach. Is there additional cost to that? Absolutely. Archaeological site, that was part of our statement. We had letters supporting the review of this as being safe to do so. Kim had requested that we get that. She forwarded us the information as to how to go about doing that. We did that, got the letter back. I hear this business about a clear integrated approach. I think those are a lot of words, but I don't really understand what that means. You know, we've got a very simple thing. We've got a water main extension for Valentine's. He wants to put it in there. He should be allowed to put it in there, whether that was deemed to be a summer line that's buried 5 feet down, who cares? He wants to do that and we approve that plan. He should be allowed to do that. What is it going to do to town services? Nothing. Nothing at all. What's it gonna do to us? Nothing at all. He receives our water already. If he shuts that off and goes to this new location, he's probably gonna use the same amount of water. Greg has got his project. He's trying to get it done. We have worked together on this. We designed the pipes, the pipe sizes with Greg to make sure that we could get sufficient fire flow up to the top of Cooksey Drive. And that became our decision maker. And that's why we performed the hydraulics and came up with 10-inch pipe that we needed to be able to do it with that particular size. So I think there is a lot of engineering work and thought that we put into this. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
I think we're gonna probably bounce it back to Travis, because it looks like,
Yeah, I actually
Yes,
had one
it's,
question for you, Paul, if you don't mind, and then I do want to answer your question to me. You had a question about integrated approach, so I just want to, and engineering, so I want to go back to that. But I do want to ask you a question about, you had stated that, could you tell me functionally how this water main then, maybe I interpreted it wrong looking at the plans, but how are you actually going to build this water main? That's your segment, the first segment of the project. How do you envision that being done?
Same way we did Main Street in Northeast Harbor.
Well, no, Paul, you said you were gonna rip the main out, I thought you said you were gonna rip the main out and put a 10-inch in.
Which is
So-
what was done on Main Street,
So how are you gonna maintain service to the residents?
the same way we did on Main Street.
so Paul, when you're talking, like, just for the record.
Yep.
You know, like, just elaborate a little
Okay.
bit more.
So-
please.
On Main Street,
Yeah,
we ripped out the old water main. We installed a new water main and set up temporary water for the people that needed temporary water. Exactly the same thing we're doing here, no different.
But you haven't provided any information on that, and during the Main Street project, Paul, there was a lot of information, because you had actually hired an engineering firm, Woodard and Curran, that had been on that project for, I want to say, the 2 years prior to a shovel being put in the ground, thinking through that project, and actually you and I, and Tony Smith and Ron Hyde spent hours together planning that project. So back, I'm sorry.
But what did that have to do with temporary water?
Because there was a plan put forth relative to how that was gonna take place. So I'm coming back to, the integrated approach. And I think Paul said it in his opening line, something to the effect of, we rushed to put these together, or I forgive me if that's not the correct terminology he used, but it sounded as if, he's in short order put together a design plan for this project, for this first element. He's indicated there's been a lot of engineering design relative to fire flows, making sure that the water has been sized appropriately. Myself personally, when I worked at Woodard and Curran, I analyzed the system. I understood the system. I ran the model. So I understood the seasonal system. I understood the permanent system. I worked with Ron Hyde quite extensively. There's a lot of engineering that goes on to understand how to size a main, how to size a blow off, all of that. When I hear things like, well, we had to rush to put this in, you're not taking and looking at this as a water main extension. From our perspective, looking at 3 different engineered plans that have 3 different sizes for water mains. You have an 8.5-inch diameter main, a 10-inch main, and a 4-inch main.
Where's the 8.5-inch main?
It's your 10-inch PE. The effective diameter is 8.5.
No,
It is, Paul. So,
no, it's not.
Paul, I don't
right,
really don't want
just
to debate,
let's-
but if you say on the
Let's-
plan 10-inch PE, what you end up getting is a pipe that's like that has a thick inside diameter, so you only have 8 inches to work with. So, at the end of the day, there has been no information shared or provided in any of the design plans that I reviewed that have really indicated, have we sized blow-offs appropriately? Have we located blow-offs appropriately? Can we in fact remove the blow-off from 13 and from 19 Steamboat Wharf Road? None of that is in any of this. And to me, it comes back to you, obviously, your burden is to look at the performance standards. But the impact to the residential properties, specifically 13 and 19, relative to this project, I think can be significantly improved. If you slowed down, if we actually looked at this as an integrated approach. And figured out, okay, 13 and 19, and Paul said it, will likely never be needed. So why can't we take that one step further, do an analysis and say, yeah, we can remove that?
And how do you do that analysis?
How do you do the analysis?
Right.
So what did your engineer provide for you? When I asked what,
you do that analysis, Travis?
how would I do the analysis, Paul?
Yeah.
I would look at this as an integrated approach. First of all, you're replacing 6-inch main with 10. So you have water, a lot more water you're removing, you got a lot more water setting in the pipe, right? So you're gonna have to move that water likely to keep the water fresh. You're gonna improve water quality, but you're also gonna have to move that water to keep it fresh.
I don't think you were
So
making
can I,
sense here, Travis. You do not, you cannot calculate what blow-offs are needed until you operate the main, period. You
so.
can't tell me that you can do that. for the-
Paul,
So-
exam.
so I
Paul, you
don't-
asked me a question and I was gonna answer it. Do you mind if I finish the answer?
You guys are gonna listen to the chair too, right?
Yes, all right.
Mhm. So, I hear what you're both saying, and I think we're starting to get into the weeds a little bit here. And, what I'd like to hear from you, Travis, I think would be constructive, not only for the board's understanding, but also putting this application is in perspective is, could you summarize just kind of in layman's terms, what your primary concerns are, just quickly, like?
Yes. We believe that a water main extension such as this should be looked at to identify where blow off should be placed, where hydrants should be placed. And we do not believe that the blow offs at 13 and 19 are needed.
Mhm.
We've evaluated this. We've asked for information to show from his engineers
Okay,
where,
yeah,
where they are. And what I
Yeah.
continue to hear for an answer is, well, we'll figure that out when we build it.
Mhm.
Well, that is not true. That may be what operationally the Mountain Desert Water District has done over the years. But you typically try to plan because they don't have right title and interest properties along the line.
Mhm.
So you typically plan these things out. They have not planned this out near as we can tell because they've had one aspect of it in design. They've reviewed two other aspects of it. We haven't seen an integrated review of, okay, what are the fire flows gonna be? What is the water pressure gonna be? I mentioned to you earlier about the design standards relative to 10 state standards on sizing these blow-offs. Have they looked at that? There's been no blow-off size presented for what the Valentine property needs, and that's gonna be the end of this entire main. I mean, this is where the water is likely gonna be flushed to. You would think that an integrated approach looking at start to finish would be able to provide a size and a feature like what is it gonna look like? And then you gotta remember, you're moving water. So where does that water now go? Does it go downhill? Is it captured into a catch basin somewhere? I don't know. That within itself may present erosion issues, it may present freezing issues, it may present other runoff related issues. It just hasn't, from our perspective, maybe there's information that's been shared that we haven't seen. I don't think so. There's not been one unified review of this project. That's what it really is. It's a water main extension. It's been presented as incremental replacements or water main projects. So that's
Yeah.
the major concern, Bill, for
Mhm.
Chair Hanley. Thank you.
Thanks, to put, yes, absolutely, and can you get rid of the blow-offs on 13 and 19?
How would you do that?
I don't know why.
Okay,
You
exactly.
tell us.
That's different, but that's two
Yeah.
different answers. Is that part of this review,
Yeah,
how we operate?
Yeah.
Travis, I'd like to talk a little bit.
just hold on, Travis.
When we're talking about pipes,
Mhm.
10-inch ductile versus 10-inch HDPE pipe, it's iron pipe size. We use the exact same coupling to couple the two pipes together. Think of an iron pipe, ductile iron pipe, it's gonna be what, ½ inch thick? So the 10-inch HDPE pipe could be 0.6 inches thick. We're not talking 2.5 inches here, guys. They're within less than an inch between both pipes, probably less than ½ inch. That's number one. You're talking about blow-offs, and you're talking about 2-inch blow-offs. You don't need 2-inch blow-offs to flush. We talked about them for improving water quality. We're talking about using them, that we have an asset in the ground. You never know how you're going to need to use that in the future. We use our hydrants for flushing. That's how we flush. We don't flush with blow-offs. Blow-offs that's a misnomer as to how they are. And yes, we are in fact trying to put in this brand new main. And yes, Greg is working on trying to get his project completed, going up through all the way up to Cooksey Drive, and that's great. And that when that happens, we're going to be able to test the water. And the only way that you know how to test water, how you know that whether you need to run a blow off to turn over that water, is to test it. You cannot do that from an engineering standpoint, period. And so we have that ability to do that. And then that's exactly what we're going to do. And do you have any water licenses, Travis? I'm a grade 4 licensed water operator. All of our people at the water district have the highest licenses, which are grade 4 water treatment operator licenses. That's how you do it. And if you talk to other engineering firms, and I've talked to Craig Johnston about it, and he readily identified and said, there's no way that you can calculate what residual chlorine is going to be in a water main through engineering calculations. Impossible. It depends upon what you've got coming into the main. It depends upon the water quality, which changes. We have where our water comes from Jordan Pond. It's a surface water. It changes throughout the course of the year. pH, lots of factors go into water quality issues. So I wanted to put that whole concept about blow-offs. And Bill, in answer to your question, you know, do we want to run these blow-offs there? No, we don't have to. We're not going to. And we told that to Todd 2.5 years ago.
Where's the water go if you have to run them?
It would just go overboard into the ocean. And our desire is to not have to use them. And we fully expect that we won't have to use them, but they're there. So for the future, like I talked about with respect to water main breaks and things like that, where you would have to actually disinfect the water main, you're going to need some place for that water to go. And that's one of the ways that you would do it.
Okay, so hold on a second, Travis.
Sure.
You know, you guys have a monopoly on the dialogue here. And Dave, you look like you're intensely listening to this discussion. And I know that you have a wealth of knowledge and are a tenured planning board member. And I just want to see if you have any comment about kind of where we're at with this right now.
I'm afraid I'm quite confused. But to begin with, I wasn't at the October 12th meeting.
When he should be.
That,
Then that's an issue.
Why wasn't that brought up in the beginning?
I
Yeah.
actually was thinking of bringing up who participated, and Gloria was listening to the whole thing, right?
Lori was listening to the
Yeah.
whole thing, so
And
she
they
can
had that
It was
participate.
Meredith, Tracy, Christie, and Gloria,
Yeah.
Okay, so.
and then you did the affidavit, so
Mhm.
you could participate.
Yep,
Dave should not be participating.
all right, there you go. So just a couple general comments, and maybe those who can participate can chime in as well. But you know, we've been down this road many times. before with, engineered submittals, designed by, licensed professionals, stamp plans and all that. And, and Travis keeps reiterating too, that, putting into the context of our review, we're reviewing things through the conditional use application process, which is a process based upon performance standards. And we have very specific performance standards, but yet still somewhat general. So for, in the past, when we have submitted plans that are stamped by a licensed professional, we have to essentially, base our review on that. Look, these should be designed to the standards of the profession and be constructed thereof too. So, for us to get into the weeds about 10-inch pipe and what the interior diameter is and all the engineering specifics, I think that's, and Paul, is, I think, somewhat on track with this comment about, well, why are we reviewing that kind of specific engineering quantitative criteria that you hire an engineer to do? And I would say that, well, we don't. We're looking at general performance standards of this, and obviously putting it into the context of each section of review, and as the applicant has indicated throughout their application, specifically to the review criteria of each section. I mean, just again, we're looking, as we get into the review of the application, we're looking at things like compatibility and erosion and highway safety and impact on town services and land suitability and lighting and stormwater and vegetation and dust fumes and vapors and that kind of stuff. And as we go through the review, as we have often experienced, if there is something specific relative to that performance standard, then it should be discussed. But I just want to make sure we're staying on track here with what the context of how we're reviewing this, how we have reviewed past similar projects, and that we're not getting steered off course into the some kind of analytical breakdown of engineered system by a licensed professional. We're putting this into the context of the review criteria that we have. So just keep that in mind. And
For public utilities.
yeah.
I guess the context that I was thinking of it, and what we so often are doing, is reviewing things. Things aren't just signed off by Kim when there's that the review of it gives the opportunity of neighbors
Absolutely.
and next door neighbors to express concerns. And it's not necessarily the debate of this engineering is driven by concerns of people who are going to be affected by it. And usually we just have a civil conversation of, the Valentines were very concerned about the telephone pole. We heard lots of technical stuff about replacing that telephone pole, but we really vetted that she had a concern about her view and whether that was the best option. So I don't feel like we are necessarily, we don't have the ability to oversee whether things are properly engineered, but to discuss the engineering, we review the concerns of neighbors. And I guess that's the context that I'm willing to listen to the engineering discussions.
Obviously, yeah, putting it in context, if you have to run the blow off, don't run water through Todd's front door.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm
so-
hearing is that Todd wants to say this overall needs to be looked at so that you take a better look at really where do you need blow offs, and that he believes an engineer can tell you this is how many you need and this is where they need to be. And Paul's saying, we just leave them where they are, and if I need to use them, I'm going to use them. But I guess I
get the concept of the integrated approach, totally get it. hey, we're always gotta have that big picture in your head whenever you're doing anything. But you gotta understand how our review is tasked. You know, I've got, you know, a very specific application here for a very specific length, and you know, that's very dangerous territory for a board to venture off into beyond the application. So, you know, we've got to also keep that in mind, that, you know, look, we've got, you know, some pretty specific asks here for in this conditional use application. And I think, you know, based on, you know, how we have to review things, we've got to be conscious of that specific context that we're reviewing it in too.
I guess it has driven the question of, is really the whole thing about just the blow-offs, that they're wanting it overall review and everything, and can we come to just a better agreement if Paul could move them down the street where they would go straight off into the ocean and not cross anybody's property, or would you
So
be?
Mary, the question was to me, I think, Paul, was it to me because I'm representing the client? Were you asking me the question?
Well, it is to both of you, but why don't you go first?
Yeah,
And then
I mean,
see what Paul has to say about
the
it.
question was relative to our timeline, so that's what I thought. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah,
So I just, you know, ultimately, I think the question was asked of Paul, and I'll refrain from asking questions to him as he's asking me. The question was asked, can you remove it? I think did you say, can you remove it?
Yeah, can you just
And then
get
the
rid
answer
of?
was something to the effect of, well, why should we? There was no yes or no answer.
Mhm.
So that's what my client is looking for. Could we get a yes or no answer? And his statement about how you analyze where a blow off is. Now, I'm just gonna remind you what I said earlier. I worked for Woodard and Curran, which was the district's engineer for a long time, and I don't know, they're not anymore, I don't know, but we modeled the system, and I've done a lot of water system modeling in my career.
Mhm.
Now, what Paul said is correct, that from an operations standpoint, of course, you can go out after something's been built and try to figure out what you need. But for him to say that you can't design it and you can't analyze a system to determine where a blow off should be is just wrong. You look at pipe sizes, and on a dead end main, that used to be a 6-inch diameter, it's now a 10-inch with very little water use. The water's not going to turn over much.
Mhm.
So you can look at something called water age in your model, and you can assess when are we going to start to have issues with that water, perhaps, and then when do we maybe need to rechlorinate that water. So Paul is correct in his assessment of, yeah, once, you know, it's not as simple as that, but that is how you initially look at planning. So all we've asked for is a simple yes or no answer. The answer we continue to get is, well, why would I? And I believe there is a yes or no answer out there. And I believe that an engineer can provide that answer. Now, I may be from the perspective of, you know, a tainted view because I'm representing, you know, Todd and Abby. Perhaps a third-party engineer could look at this and assess that. Perhaps we could come to that kind of conclusion, but ultimately, if those were removed, because we believe they could be, they should be, that would be great. Now, Paul said that he could reuse those, I believe, for maybe chlorination or water break. I'm not sure you could use those as they are, Paul. I might be wrong, but I think they free discharge and I think they're inaccessible to be able to use as that, but I'm not asking Paul a question. I'm just throwing that out there as I'm not sure we've fully been given an understanding of what they would be used for in the future. So again, a yes or no question has not been answered.
Okay, there's a question behind you.
I just had a concern about, as a citizen not served. I'm concerned about the cost that may accrue by going through engineering processes when it seems like pretty straightforward. It's been there for how long, Paul, maybe 50 years or
75,
75 years.
one of them.
Been a problem with it. And it's probably gonna cost in the neighborhood of $50,000 to get engineered correctly, or
No, You know, I mean, to review this, to have third-party review, you're not talking $50,000, you're talking, I mean, I'm guessing that Paul could probably call up Woodard and Curran right now and have them analyze the system for him. The water model exists somewhere, at least it did in 2008, and you can evaluate what this main extension is going to be relative to your summertime use and your wintertime use to get an understanding of how much of this is this water turning over? Where should our blow off be? What size should that be? What is the impact there? So it will not be a $50,000 expenditure. I would be shocked if it was more than a few $1,000s. Quite honestly, I mean, don't hold me to it, but it's in that ballpark.
But I guess if your client was wanting to put their money where your mouth was and make it happen, then maybe there wouldn't be some problem, but my mother's on this water system and it's gonna cost her more money and she doesn't have a dog in the fight. So. That's where it comes, where the money hits the road is what the problem is.
And I think that my client has put their money where their mouth is. They have hired me. I have evaluated it, and I do not believe that those two blow-offs are necessary for the maintenance and operation of the water main extension as it is proposed through these three specific projects.
Paul,
Going back to Meredith asked the question. And she talked about, well, why were the blow-offs there? Because that was the end of that dead end thing. And the only way that we had the ability to turn over that water to improve the water quality was to operate that blow-off.
I didn't ask why it was where it was.
Oh.
I was asking, could it simply be, I guess I look at this drawing and just from everything that you guys have talked about, we have. Am I blind? Why do I not see on this drawing or the engineer drawings where these blow offs?
That's a very good point.
I'm like-
They're not there.
They were.
So they're not there.
Is there a
There may
simple-
be a shut off there, but there's general notes. There's not a lot of detail with respect to what's gonna happen there, other than
The
there's
blow-offs
a
are on the-
there's a note that says that all services are to be replaced to the right of way with 1-inch diameter water main.
Is there a symbol, Paul? What do you consider?
WSO. It's very faint. Yes. You can see them, they're all marked.
Is it on the first page? It's second.
They're on all those pages now.
So the point is, you can't, it's not clear from this plan, what's the blow off and what's the water shut off.
Well, so my simple impression is that I look at this drawing and I see a stretch of the road. We've got all the way from Marine Point and the Valentine's all the way up the road that all of this water line's getting. And there's a section of the road that goes right up against the water. There's nobody's property in between. Can we just put the blow off valves in there? You can have blow off valves. You can keep all that water moving. You just move it a little further down the road. And then everybody can go home.
Well, hey, we haven't completed this project. That's the whole point.
But we've got
And right now, the way things are going, we'll never complete this project.
But you plan projects, and
So-
with planning, you can identify.
hold on a second, Travis.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah,
I apologize.
thanks.
We haven't completed this project. We haven't even completed the section from that Greg is working on, trying to bring it back down to us. He's hoping to have that done this March. This delay, we're trying to get ours done as quickly and easily as possible.
But it's just a blow off valve and the fact that none of it's been two blow off valves, but the fact that none of it means that they can be put still, it doesn't exist yet. We can put them like, let's take a moment and say, where's a good place that doesn't make anybody unhappy?
We're gonna have them at the end there.
So what?
So we're having them at the end, right? And we fully expect that we are not going to have to operate
The
these
end down,
blowouts in the future.
Is
That's
it,
our point.
So if that is the claim, then why
That's what I said.
Why can't we
why
just,
can't we remove them?
yeah, can we,
You don't know until you test the water, Travis. You're not gonna know that, you can know the whole thing is done.
Can I ask again, Paul, is there any chance you can just get rid of the blow offs by 13 and 19 so we
No.
can move this forward?
You can't do that. We haven't completed our main,
Yeah,
he hasn't completed his main,
when
and
you're,
until that's done.
can you
you're not gonna-
can you abandon them when they're done? When it's done?
Our intention is to not have to run them, which is what Todd wants.
Mhm.
What Todd wants also is, and if there was some ironclad guarantee, I think that he would be happy. His approach has been, if I can get those removed, then I guess they're never gonna run. Well, those are assets. Those assets have been in the ground there for 50 years, 70 years, whatever, on that main. They've always been there.
You haven't answered
And I
why,
think also, I think going back to what we talked about, we're getting into something that I believe is outside the area of this planning board.
Yeah, I think,
I strongly believe that, guys.
I agree again, that's a fine line to dance on. However, like Meredith was, pointing out earlier, we're here representing the citizens of the town, and here we have a citizen of the town concerned about the application before us, and we're just trying to listen and address that concern. So.
Do you mind if I address, so, Paul did mention that the reason the blow offs are where they are is because you would put them at the end of a dead end main. So now we have a situation where we're extending where the dead end location is, right? So it's being extended up to Valentine. So presumably you could remove those. So, I mean, that's just, that doesn't take engineering 101, right? I mean, you can remove those. There is a way to analyze the system to determine the size of the blow off that you need at the end of the main. And there is an analysis that can be performed for you to get the answer, whether it be yes or no, that you can remove the two that exist currently. I just, want to point that out. That is the case. That really is ultimately what could happen here. And I just want to say one more thing. Paul just spoke on behalf of my client, and he mentioned things that were not actually true. So my client, as I'm representing tonight, would like the two blow-offs removed. My client is not interested in having them stay on his property and her property to have them run intermittently or maybe not. That may have been an item that he had discussed with Paul in the past based on the operation of the system at that time. But with this extension of the system, it makes complete sense that if your dead end is being extended and it's no longer in the middle, remove those two blow-offs, have the blow-off be at the end and be done with it. And that is what my client desires.
Got it. So how about we try to move the process along here? And we start thinking about, the review of the application, unless, anybody's got anything else to say, public included. And we start waiting through the review of it,
but I feel like, the review of it is going to come to a yes or no, and we need simply a truce, just call it, of this issue about the blow off valves. We've got a new blow off valve going in at the end. Paul's somewhat concerned that won't be adequate, I guess, is the reason why he won't take it out. Well, if there's a new one going in that will be available, because Ring Point's going to be done before your project, therefore, when you do your project, you will have the new blow off valve, I would presume, available to you.
Thank you.
So it just seems you either feel that you potentially, and I can understand if you say that you can't be 100% sure, but you're concerned that you need blow-offs further up the road, and if that's the case, can we simply move them down the road where they don't? Because you're gonna put in new stuff anyway, so why not just put it in a place where it doesn't bother people? Or you're going to have a new blow-off valve going in available to you when you do this project, and please just take them out. And we should be able to just have a nice civil conversation and come to an agreement about this. Why is it a problem?
Well, it seems though, these things that probably don't move that easily. I bet it costs a little bit of money to move, first of all.
You could abandon them in place. So especially since there's a new project going through with a new water main, you simply can abandon it in place and it no longer will run water. So it will no longer be connected. It's a relief point to the main itself, if you will. So it just won't get reconnected to the new main. That would be abandonment is really.
You've
When I
got
say
a new 10-inch
removal,
pipe, so it
when I
has,
say removal, it's really abandonment, is ultimately probably the easiest, best solution. Is
I
abandonment.
see like a compromise here. I think I understand what Paul's saying is that. He needs them for the interim while they're building this project, because this winter they need to use the blow off perhaps because there's a stagnant section of water in that pipe that they need to do something to.
is that what you're saying, Paul?
That's true.
That you only need these for the
And-
interim?
I don't know that.
In the
You
future,
don't know that
there may be-
until you actually have the project completed and you can test the water. That is the only way you're gonna know 100%.
Why would the blow off at the end of the line not be adequate?
We don't know how. Depending upon water quality throughout the line, we would be testing the water quality throughout that line and make sure that it conforms to our standards. Just because you put in a brand new main and you have a blow off at the end does not make it 100% that it's gonna work. But I also think we're way out of bounds in terms of what I came here for, which was to get approval on replacing our water main in the street. And you guys are telling me how to operate the water distribution system.
Well, we're not telling you anything yet. We're just
Well, you
asking.
are. You're telling me
No, we're not.
It is completely compatible with the way that we review. People say they want to put in a garage, the next door neighbors say, I don't like where you're putting the garage, I don't like the way it's gonna impact me. It meets all the standards, and we get them to agree to take care of each other
You know, we-
and be nice
At
neighbors.
the end of the day, it's still a human process, and as it should be, and. I put this in the context of another project we've been reviewing for 10 years,
Mhm.
And as human and as technical as that has been, I think it's ultimately always come down to, humans dealing with humans.
so.
And
My suggestion to you guys
Mhm.
is let's go ahead and complete the projects. After we complete the projects and we have an opportunity to test the water, and then make a determination about abandoning those blow-offs. That's the way it should be done. Why is there a rush to remove something that's already there?
And I would argue, why is there a rush to install something right now without fully understanding what you need? And I'm gonna reiterate what Paul has said here tonight. That a blow off like this is typically put on the end of a main. The end of the main is now being moved further up the road. You can evaluate from an engineering perspective, the size and location of the main, of the blow off. The plans by Valentine's say blow off. There's gonna be a blow off there. Nothing has been presented really in terms of what that's going to be. At the end of the day, we're very confident that these two blow-offs at 13 and 19 can be abandoned. And his system will still function as it does today. I am not sure, really, quite honestly, why they need to stay in place. If I was given information, hard information, that really showed, okay, we really need these because of X, we need to rechlorinate, we need to do this.
So
Then maybe we could, agree, but, using his own words, these blow-offs were installed at the end of the line. The end of the line is now moving. Let's remove and abandon those blow-offs. And it should still operate just as it always has in the past.
Billy,
I'm just wondering if the Simpsons should maybe apply to get the blow offs removed, let him do his project. and then you apply later to get them removed. Like, why doesn't that make sense?
So what,
Like, isn't it a separate issue? Like, he wants the blow offs gone.
Mhm.
So he wants to put the water line in, so shouldn't they have to put something forward to remove the blow offs?
what I think I just heard was a potential offering of the olive branch here. That after the system is complete and the totality of it is in place, that the water district would then evaluate the system in total. And if it's deemed, you know, by however it's deemed by whatever licensed professional that the blow offs can be removed, then the blow offs would be removed.
That's true. Yeah, that's not acceptable because number one, the time to abandon them is when you replace the main. The time to abandon and replace them isn't after the fact.
Why?
I'm gonna continue to address the board. That is not the time to do it. As I've mentioned here tonight, you can analyze the system to identify whether or not you need those. You do not need to wait until the project is built. Think about that for a second. How many water mains do you know that are built? And then when they're done construction, somebody comes in and says, oh, wait, that's right. We need to put this over here because we didn't really evaluate it, but that's how we do it. Well, I can tell you as an engineer, I am not a licensed operator. I'm answering one of the questions that he threw out earlier. I am a licensed engineer. I am bound to look out for the safety of the general public. So we design systems that way. You design and plan things like this. So again, at the end of the day, we cannot adhere to or agree to a situation where, yeah, let's go in and remove it later. It needs to be abandoned now when you're going through there. Again, our contention is it's not needed. You have a blow-off plan at the end of the main that's now extended because where they currently exist now is no longer at the end of the main. It's really that simple. It's really that simple.
You guys realize that we could, as the board, table this right here and now, and we tell you guys, go out in the parking lot and settle this in a civil manner and then come back to us with an agreement. So what I'm getting,
Things are not settled simply in the parking lot. Why don't you just do parking lot?
Is there a bar in town?
you know what I'm getting at is that,
Yeah.
you know, I think this is coming to a point where you guys got to have a conversation or two about this and get an agreement in place between you on this, because us telling you to put a blow off here or a blow off here is beyond our jurisdiction.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, I mean, like I mentioned, I
Yeah.
laid out a few options forward and we don't mind having the conversation and continuing the conversation.
And
with the district.
we've done that. We've seen that happen before with applicants in the past, like, you know, but usually it gets resolved in here, like, okay, look, you know, we're in agreement with what the applicant is proposing, you know, we'll take that to the bank, and then often it becomes a permit condition on the application. So it's, you know, it's actually recorded, there's some teeth to it, and it's part of the record. And
The thing that's not making sense about the existing blow-offs and reusing them is that got a 6-inch pipe that's attached to them. And that 10-inch pipe is going in, that therefore has to actively be attached to these blow-offs.
Right.
Or not attached to the blow-offs.
Bingo.
And so that's sort of the benign, they're already in place. And the passive approach is to reuse them. I guess doesn't entirely make sense to me because you actively have to hook them up to the 10-inch.
Correct, and that's why when I mentioned the abandonment is probably the best route if you were, because you're replacing the main that they're connected to. So a pipe right here, and you're putting another pipe right here, you'd have to connect them to that pipe.
Paul wants to say something.
Paul really wants to say something.
So we've already clarified that point. We're not putting our water main adjacent to an existing water main. The other water main is going to be removed. Number one. Number two, it is at the district cost. We're being very cautious about making sure that we are generating potable water for all of our customers, not just Todd. There are a lot of customers. And that continues during the summertime, all the way up the hill inside. And the olive branch is there. And I think it's very clear that when we have that data and we have that information, and there is no need for us to do that, it is at our expense. And that is something that we are willing to spend, that we would then remove those blow-offs. And that is something that can easily be done, and it's not a big deal.
And sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Again, it's again, just very simple. The main is being extended. The end of the main is where you put the blow off. It makes perfect sense where the Valentine. The blow off has been shown. It makes perfect sense to when you go in, and as he says, you're gonna rip out the main, but you do have to physically connect those blow offs back into the new main. It makes perfect sense to abandon it now. So again, we're not going to accept that. Sure, we'll evaluate it after the fact and see what happens down the road.
What's the purpose? I
So
don't
you-
understand.
So you guys are like on opposite ends of the spectrum at the moment, right now, and let's, what do you, let's hear from the board a little bit here on this.
Well, if the blow off issue is at a standstill. We're kind of,
Yeah, it's a tough one because, you know, that's not really a performance review criteria specifically in the process we go through. But again, as I was saying,
Yeah.
you know, we're here to hear also from the citizens of the town. And we've got a very concerned citizen here and trying to make some progress out of this into getting some kind of agreement on the table about their concern being addressed. And obviously, we don't have the teeth in our review process to enforce that, but if there was an agreement, we can absolutely identify it through a permit condition. And what I keep circling back to is I wish you guys could get an agreement on this, because it's, you know, what's gonna happen is if you're not in agreement with it, then we're just gonna wade right through the review of the application as we're tasked with, and you probably have to go through the appeals process to, you know, bring the concern back.
Yeah.
So,
Can you show us, Paul, where on these drawings? I haven't been able to find the blow off.
They're not shown there. The shot, the actual.
Let Paul
location-
come out
let
and
Paul show it.
say where he feels that they're presented.
I'm sorry to harp on the money issue, but delays always cost money
Mhm.
and lots of it. And I think this.
So
looks like a pretty straightforward project.
It says WSL.
I mean, from the outside,
That's the
and
Mhm.
as a
WSL.
concerned citizen,
All these
representing
things,
myself,
WSL,
I-
these are service connections, and that's
I'm
where the town.
concerned it's gonna cost a lot more money than it
Okay.
could.
It's hard to
sell it out.
Especially when you blow it up
Abandon that.
on a big piece of paper, it's easy to see, but here it's hard.
So I thought you said that there were just two.
Yeah.
There are two. Those are.
The one,
Let's-
two,
let's
Well,
let
those are
the
service
top
connections to those houses. A blow off is simply a connection to a water main. That's all. It's a pipe.
so you're saying every,
No.
That's what I was saying, is it's not clearly delineated what's the water shut off for the service and what's actually the blow off. So it's not really clearly delineated on these design plans where they are.
That's something that
So
could
what's the
be,
point?
that's something.
Just
that could
answering her
be
question, Paul.
amended.
She wanted you to show where
I
they
did,
were,
I showed her where
but wouldn't they have been on the design plan?
they're right there. I showed her. And she saw.
Where are they?
So my,
The faint, really faint. you
Yeah.
said?
My answer to the question that I just posed is that
Yeah,
I
this one.
actually delays cost everybody.
Mhm.
But I would also say that improper planning does. too.
Oh,
You know, and I.
oh,
certainly
yeah, oh, I see,
believe
yeah. There's one, yeah.
A little bit more
but there's
planning.
more than,
We can all come to terms.
but that's a third. He's like, when you say there's only 2 blow off valves, but then you point out. 4.
Just,
Because they're designated the same way.
yeah, just be careful about multiple conversations, because we gotta have it clear in the record, and
So you.
So
Yeah.
there's, which ones are
as
the
awesome
two?
as Heidi
The
is,
actual blow-off.
it's often a challenge.
Well, there's only one blow in this part of our project that you guys are to approve. The other blow off is not even part of this project
Okay,
that you've already approved. That's Greg's project, which you've already approved,
right.
that blow off and that attachment. So we're only talking about one blow off on this permit.
And the blow off's about here.
I have to pull out our comic, if I can see it here, but. That blow off is probably right in here, right there.
Right at the intersection.
So it's this one.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Yes,
Because there's also another one right there.
that's the curb stop.
That must be the shut off of the house.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
shut off.
Yeah, it's-
But there is only one law for this permit that we're talking about.
I guess that it's just to come to a minimal, if you've got a device that's buried, you're digging everything up because you're replacing the main water line. Isn't, if you want to have this second, can't we just move it down? Move the device that you have when you dig everything up and just move it down to where it doesn't cross anybody's property. If you should, then you have it. And you can abandon it if you need to, but it doesn't,
You already have it.
you have it, you could
The
just move
connection-
it.
The connection to the new water main is a very simple process. Relocating it to some other area, we might not even need this blow off, Meredith.
Yes.
Our contention is, and our belief is, that we won't. And all we're saying with our olive branch is, hey, well, let's go ahead. Let's let it run, let us do our testing, and we will be able to know. That's what you're looking for. And that's what we can do. And I think, talking about premature jumping, why get rid of something that we are currently using right now? That we currently have to use this year, and if this project gets delayed much longer, we could have to use it next year too. Why wouldn't you? You have a dead end. And all those people that live on that road would have poor water quality.
Eliza,
Am I hearing you say that the cost of moving it is prohibited?
It could be, because there's a whole process. When you talk about relocating something, you know, it's simply when you're attaching it to the main, there's one cost, and the main is already dug up. The pipe's right there. If you relocate it to a different place, you've got to excavate a different lateral, you have to install a different pipe. It's a whole different process that has to take place. So you have the corporation, which attaches the main, and then you have the curb stop, which controls the actual blow off. The corporation is the emergency shut off that you utilize to shut it off in case you've got something that you have to do to replace this. Otherwise, you have to shut the whole main off. So it's very easy for us to attach it, verify when the whole project is done, and then we can make our determination.
And I think the other cost that's included here too, that Paul did mention too, is acquiring the right title and interest to be able to install these. And I think I noted earlier that it's not clear that these are even owned, or it's not clear that the district has the right title and interest to actually maintain and operate these from a legal perspective. But at the end of the day, to again, put another finer point on it, the location that Meredith keeps talking about, keep moving it down the line. Their plan has included that. It's at the end of the line.
Yeah, I understand.
Remember, we keep talking about the reason they're there now is because that was the end of the line. The end of the line has now been extended. Why not remove these two or abandon them and put the one in? It's
because what I'm hearing is that you can't really do that until the full system is in place and operable. And what he's saying is when it is, yes, then we'll assess it, and if we can, we will.
That's A.
Yeah.
And B is that it costs more money to put a new one in. A lot more money that you might not have to use at all after the job is complete. So it's a waste of money to take the one out that you need right now. And it's simple. Don't move it, use it because it's there. Done.
So
Cut, dig.
respectfully, we've still yet to get an answer on whether or not they are needed for the district. They're desired because they're there. That's the answer that we've been given. We've not been given a yes or no. And I believe from an engineering perspective, you can find out whether or not they are needed. So that's what we've asked for, a yes or no answer. There is one plan in the project, in the overall extension, which is at the end of the line, which Paul in his own words has admitted that you typically put them in at the end of the line. So rationally speaking, why do you need one in the middle when you're gonna extend the line? So at the end of the day, my clients are gonna stand by their desire that we have to abandon these, that is the desire to have these abandoned.
You have blow offs in other places besides the end of the lots.
So again,
Using your words.
I think we've asked for some human consideration of this, and I think it just, we're kind of at an impasse here with this, and that the olive branch was not accepted, and I'm feeling like we gotta move this into the review now. Or we just
We can
table
make
it,
it,
or
we can
we-
make it a condition of the application that
Sure.
there's
can.
a final.
As-
Upon completion of the project,
Yeah.
this must be reviewed for abandonment.
Sounds good.
But what
So
it,
that does not sound good because you have a finished project with finished pavement. There's an exorbitant amount of cost associated there. So I would offer that you perhaps have an independent third party review this. Because I still believe what I'm saying is that if this main is extended as intended, this three-phased approach, you're not gonna need those two blow-offs. So rather than me tell you that, rather than Paul's engineer who hasn't told us that, maybe we find an engineer that can give us an assessment that would be worthy. So I would proffer that as a condition perhaps, because, again, I do not believe that we've been given enough information to adequately determine whether or not they're needed. When
Why
asked a
is-
yes
why
or
is
no
it
question,
being-
when asked a yes or no question, he says, because they're there. There's no answer.
I also answered it by saying an engineer cannot determine that.
And
It needs to be tested to determine it. And so I 100% disagree with your statement there, Travis.
What were you-
That's one of the other-
Just hold on. Let the
What's the
board
condition?
speak.
in the end of, if we put a condition on this application saying. It must be looked at the completion of the project and determined whether it can be abandoned. Why is, I understand you just say, well, it's cost more money to cut it off at that point. But what's,
What harm
do
does that do?
do you not like it to physically be there, or if it is?
Well, number one, nobody has yet proven whether it's needed. That's just the first, that is,
Right.
that's the first, there, it's still.
You just need to know what would be your problem
So
with
if you're-
saying at the end, we have a
Third-party engineer.
third-party engineer say that can be abandoned.
So
And-
again, back to proper planning.
What, but
You would
we're,
do it before you go into construction. You would not go in after you've installed, so you're gonna rip out the main, you're gonna then have to reconnect the two blow-offs. And then you're gonna backfill, and then you're gonna, just follow me for a second, then you're gonna pave. And then you're gonna come in and you're gonna run some water tests and you're gonna determine whether or not they're needed. So again, I'm still not sure what qualifiers or what we're gonna use as the reasoning for how we're gonna determine whether or not it will be satisfactory to remove. Then, let's say that it is, then you have to go back in, rip up the road, rip up the pavement, get down back on an active main, and then abandon those one way or another. So if you were to spend a little bit of time in engineering up front, you would have the ability to assess whether or not, and when we're talking a few $1,000s and a little bit of time to be able to do this, as opposed to let's spend a lot of money and then let's operate it and let's see if we actually need it.
We could ask them to do that and table this to a date certain.
You know, you're saying we're spending a lot of money. We're not spending a lot of money to go ahead and hook this up. Let it function,
You would be.
complete the project, and then come up with a determination.
One more shot.
Is
Yeah.
it-
Paul, tell me, if we put out a conditional use at the end saying we want it reviewed by a third party to determine whether it
I
needs.
tell you that it's good.
You would- Okay, what would you do? Then how would you abandon that? Would you just simply say, oh, okay, we won't use it anymore? Or would you actually do something so that it cannot be used anymore?
We're open. We're
Or-
open.
or-
You know, we could never use it. And it could still be there, or we could agree to. if
I
that
think
was
you'd make-
mandatory And people thought it made sense to go ahead and totally remove it and destroy. our
Can we take
ability
something
to
off the
use-
tops that doesn't require digging up the pavement and everything? Is there something
Digging up the
like?
pavement is an exaggerated thing. There's not a big deal about abandoning something. It's not, it's done all the time.
Can you even
No.
determine before everything's filled back in? Can you run this test before everything's filled back in? So that
You've got to complete the project.
You have to complete the project.
It's a
Which is what we
project,
said.
and it's a project that requires 3 different, elements to all go in at once, so it's gonna be.
I understand that you don't feel that it's the most. But trying to get the end game that you want, you
Yes.
want this abandoned in the end. So what would be your problem if we can come up with a way to say, at the end, we're gonna put a conditional use that is determined. And that we're not just leaving it up to Paul's word, that we're gonna put something in there saying, in the end. And I understand that may not be seen as in your mind as the most efficient approach, but does it get you what you want in the end? Just simply say, conditional use. In the end, can it be abandoned and abandon it?
No, because again, I'm gonna try to do it in the most simplest terms I can relative, and it's not just, I'm not speaking just on behalf of my clients. The simplest approach is to review it now. Perform the analysis now for a few $1,000s to determine whether or not they're needed. Then you don't go through the expense of ripping, connecting, backfilling, paving, coming back in, doing an analysis, determining whether or not it's there, digging back down, abandoning them somehow off from that main, and then going about your day. The most cost-effective approach, if they are going to be abandoned in the long term, is to evaluate right now whether or not, remember, we don't have the yes or no yet, whether or not they're needed, and then do the abandonment as you're doing the construction. So that's really the most cost effective. I've heard a lot of people, especially from the.
I
crowd,
understand that, but do you understand that we can't really do that? We can't tell the water district how to do their job, but we can get you your end result. So if you say the end result you want is we don't want a blow off,
Yeah,
we can do everything we can.
Yep.
Within this. We can get you something that might get you an abandoned blow off in the end, but if you're gonna say, that's not good enough, I wanna tell you how the project needs to be unraveled. We don't have the power to do that, we can't tell them how to.
oh, I'm not sure that I was doing that. I apologize if it came across that way, but I mean, to answer your very direct question, we want abandonment of the
So-
blow off, and they're shown, I suppose, now on the plans, he's shown them where they were, so we want abandonment of those.
So we've got 2 options. We could have the permit condition of that. We just go and
Right.
review the whole thing, and we have the permit condition that, okay, once the system in total is in place, they gotta come and assess it. And determine if they can be reviewed, or we press the pause button right now and say to the applicant, hey, we want a little bit more engineering on this and opinion on it. Those 2 things could be removed now.
So that last option is a whole month away, at the very least, at minimum.
Yeah,
If the engineer has it ready
yeah.
in a month, and you guys come back together, that's a month away.
Yeah, but also,
So that's one.
go back to my statement. Travis made his statement and said that the engineers can determine this. and I'm telling you that they can't. They cannot determine that
It's,
And I don't,
without testing.
So
And we don't have the new main, and you can't test this
So I would-
without the new main, period.
The only thing I would just add, to the comment I heard back there relative to, time. When was the initial, this was initially brought to the board in October. There was no engineered plans provided. No engineered plans, just, hey, trust us, we're gonna put the main in,
Mhm.
okay?
We've
So.
been doing it for 80
So,
years.
I'm sorry, so, we now have plans that were prepared and presented last Wednesday or Thursday to the board. So they were prepared. There's still a lot of questions on those plans from an engineering and technical perspective. I know you have to look at the performance standards. But quite honestly, just slamming stuff through because we've been doing it this way for 80 years isn't necessarily the right way. So we are standing by our position that, really, if we just slow down, we're gonna have a better end product. Paul is right. This is gonna improve water for this region. It really is. It's gonna get rid of an antiquated main. It will improve fire flows. It will improve water main, but you're also having a lot more water in a 10-inch main that might not get used a lot. See, there's a lot you've got to consider. We haven't seen any of that. That's all we're asking for. So just press pause and let's see if we can hammer this thing out.
so
We submitted engineering plans, and you made the statement that. Are you going to say that those engineering plans are not valid? I don't think so.
we're not saying that, but
Well, I don't, but
yeah.
he is saying.
No, I
that
see.
we're rushing this
We're-
statement.
So what I'm
Got-
gonna say is, I did
Hey,
not say they're not
Travis,
valid.
just
Go ahead, sir.
press pause for a
I'm going
second.
to.
Mhm. You need a big button.
I know, where's
Pause
the
pause all the
I
time.
want my old
Maybe
tape,
throw something out.
I want my old tape deck back.
Something out.
Yeah,
Greg Gables.
I know, I still feel like we got two options. We ask them for a little bit more engineering information, or we just go and review it and put a permit condition on it. And I think the discussion right now needs to be on the board side of the equation, and guys, let's figure out where we want to go with this.
No.
Dave can't comment, but.
Yeah, well, I can comment, I just can't vote. We've
Yeah.
always allowed people to make comments, I think.
Yes, do you have a comment?
Yes,
Yeah, I think we need more engineering. Either from there, the best thing would be a third-party engineer. Or have them come to an agreement to put the blow off at a location that's not going to affect anybody, and then the blow off would be there forever. If they need it. I mean, they may not be able to determine. I mean,
Well,
I would think if there is a blow off there, it would be available to be used if needed. So put it down the street.
so again, Dave, it sounds like there's two options. Either they have a little bit more engineering to clarify if it can be removed now, or they have some engineering and testing done when the whole system is online later to see if it.
And then what's going to happen when it's determined that it has to stay there? There's a question about whether they have a right to be there.
So I'm all for being as proactive as you can be. Gloria, what do you think? Now or later?
That's a tricky one. I mean, when you hear both sides, it's they both make convincing arguments, and you also have to hear both sides. And unfortunately, like we've seen so far for the last an hour and a half, we have to come to some sort of a solution or an agreement as to how to move forward. It's either having a third-party engineering company look at what's going on, or putting a permit condition on the project. And
Yeah,
it's
I
either,
feel sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm saying it's either or, one of those two.
I feel like now that, if we were in a scenario where we continued this to a date certain, we went back to to the applicant and said, okay, we'd like to just have it, your engineer that's on the stamp plans, identify the possibility about removing these now, do whatever they need to do and come back to us. I think that's an option. Tracy,
I think giving the two scenarios, that having the more engineering now is a good idea. And if we could select another location for the blow off, a proposed one on that plan, it would be also a good idea.
for the engineer to consider
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There isn't any chance that Zoom square, they're saying head of fine engineering is the engineer who
Mhm.
Yes, can we ask a question of head of fine engineering,
It's Renee,
Renee?
that's on there. He's not,
Rainey.
right? Did I say Renee? Yeah.
Rennie?
I don't, he isn't the one that stamped these plans.
No, Elaine is.
So is there a fiscally conscious person involved in this conversation besides Paul and I maybe, or? I mean, because it seems like we're just driving this simple project, which is, it's been done all across the United States of America for hundreds of years. This is how it's been done. The unit is in the ground. It needs to be there for this winter and maybe for the foreseeable future.
Has the district ever gone to the planning board before for a water main replacement?
You guys, you both are just making the argument that you don't like there's an objection, and this is the planning board, and this is the issue that we're reviewing, and it just, it would be nice if we could just come to a reasonable solution to the
Stating the
concern,
fact, I
rather
think
than,
this is gonna
The-
cost the municipality, the people of our town, hundreds of dollars per person to kick this down the road. If we just make a decision right now and do it the way it's been done, and you know what? If it's wrong in 5 years, we'll have to rip it out again and we were wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I'll tell you what.
I'm gonna,
Let me just give you some direction here from the water district standpoint. Engineers cannot determine right now that you can absolutely remove these blow-ups. They can't do it. So if you get an engineer saying that they can be removed, I'm gonna tell you that I don't believe it until it's tested. Period. So you're talking about rushing and rushing to judgment here. Well, rushing to judgment is removing the blow-offs, which is a tool that we have to maintain the water quality in that main. And you're asking us to remove one of our tools, one of our only few tools, to satisfy somebody that doesn't want blow-offs in place. A blow-off that's been there for 70 years. And he bought the house with the blow-off installed. This is a little bit crazy.
Eliza,
I
Yeah.
just like, it's sort of a basic question. What happens if that engineer, no, actually Canada, I'm sorry. What happens if the engineering report comes back and it's like, yes, you absolutely need to keep this in place? Is there any like clarity on what happens then with the client? Like,
Then-
can it then move forward? Does that have to be like?
Yeah, I
everything else on
would-
Paper?
so if they gotta stay there, then I would assume that we're continuing with the review of the project and have a finding on it. And if there's a contest about it still, that's what the appeals process is for.
but if there has to be a blow off, if an engineer just determined that there has to be a blow off, it doesn't necessarily have to be in that specific location. So we could, if we knew that we had it, an engineer could also say, but it could be 6 feet down the road or 30 feet down the road where it doesn't.
I don't feel like we would be telling the water district how to do their job if we ask for more information on the clarification of the blow offs now versus later from their engineer.
Yeah, the problem is that Paul's saying that he doesn't have any faith that if an engineer comes back and says you do not need those blow offs. Paul, am I correct, Paul, that you're saying I wouldn't? A stamped engineer would say, I am putting my stamp on it. You can have faith in me. You do not need those. And it's on the engineer's shoulders if you can't clean out the water adequately and everything. You still would say,
I would not endorse it. I can't inhibit my ability to
Okay,
make potable drinking water for the people that are living on that street. By the way, what's the chances of us even getting this main done? When the water gets shut down, you're gonna have to run a blow off right now just to keep these people with quality water.
okay, so what I'm hearing is that, if the board told you, had a finding for you to go get more information from an engineer to assess the removal of the blow offs, and they said, yeah, you can, you're not gonna do it. So that pushes us back to the other option as we go through and we review this, and we either have a permit condition or not. And if there's a contest between you guys about it, you gotta go through the appeals process. And where we can't get a human understanding about that, that's what's gonna complicate and burden the town, is extending this whole process, so.
I agree.
Do you mind if I'd like to just separate the operations and engineering so everybody understands. So engineers are obligated and given the authority, professional engineers, to design water systems. Operators do not, they operate the system. So I understand what Paul's saying. From his perspective, his way of going about it is what he wants to do. As an engineer who's been doing this for almost 30 years, I can tell you, we don't just haphazardly decide after we design something that let's put something over here, because that ends up coming back to the engineering firm as a, oh, you should have done this. Oh, you have to, you're in the design. You're in the design world. Oh, wait, you should have told us this. So you can get an answer from a little bit more engineering up front. You really can.
With the applicants saying they're not going to.
I understand the applicant is, so with
Well, not only that, you've got an existing blow that is there.
So Travis,
at the end of a main that's gonna.
so Travis, we've got a review before us then.
I'm sorry.
We've got a review before us then. So the applicant's not in agreement for us tabling this for the process to have a little bit more engineering information that you're asking for. So that's off the table. So now we're the only thing on the table is the review of it. And if we have any kind of permit condition on it, and if there was a permit condition on it, it sounds like the permit condition is going to be in the context of when the system is fully online, that you're going to have to come back and test and assess it then.
Well, I would argue that the condition could also be the board or the town hires an independent third-party engineer to review prior to construction.
Tell us how to do our job.
Yeah.
That's not what I said. I said, hire an independent third-party engineer. You don't design water systems, Paul. Hire an independent third-party engineer to review to determine whether or not those two blow-offs are necessary.
Billy and
Meredith posed the question out there and said, what can we do to settle this situation? And by waiting to go ahead and have this done. I don't think I've heard a good answer from you, Travis, as to why we can't wait until the whole thing is done, installed properly, test it and verify exactly what needs to be done. Why? You come up with answers that state that, we can do this now, we can hire engineers, we can do this. and you're gonna believe a theoretical potential that somebody says, well, we can go with actual facts in terms of by testing, does it work? Yes or no? So what is your real statement there that says it makes sense to do this now? What is the justification? That's clear, dollars and cents.
Can I ask the board if there's a question you'd like to ask me relative to what you just heard from Mr. Slack?
I'm not,
Sure, I'm not sure I understood anything other than a lot of accusations about my
Yeah.
technical capacity
So,
and competencies that I
I-
presented here tonight relative to how a water system should be designed.
I think the board has done an excellent job tonight at listening. And we're 2 hours into this, and I'm about ready to close public comment and the discussion on it, and the board needs to get a consensus on where we want to go with this.
Can I just say one thing?
And
before-
Billy, you've got your hand up, go for it.
So I think part of the issue is if any person, like this could set a precedent, like. Someone else doesn't want to shut off valve on their property, are you gonna do the same thing? Like, somebody has to have. This shut off, or is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's gonna be at the end of the project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
been
but
planned
so
by the end of the
if
project.
anybody can just come and say, I don't want it running through my property. What's gonna stop the next person from saying, I don't want it, I don't want it, we should take them out everywhere, it's like.
It's not needed, that's why. they
Yeah,
don't-
so that's the fine line. The
They don't
board's-
need it.
Yeah, I think there's one things to consider, if you allow this person to do this, there could be more that follow down the line.
Yeah,
well, I do think that we have a history, there was concerns about where. How water drains off of in front of people's driveways and stuff like that,
yeah.
but we do accommodate that, if it's a nuisance to people,
Yeah,
the
I mean,
town accommodates.
This seems like it's special consideration.
Can I ask a question about your process?
Yeah.
So as you close public hearing, public comment, do I have any opportunity to speak again in the process tonight, whether it be to offer suggestions for maybe a conditional approval conditions or anything like that?
Yeah,
Just
so-
want to make sure I know what, if I have the opportunity to speak again.
Yeah, so as we're going through it, we're not, typically we're going through and reviewing these projects and have with the past ones and using the checklist. Often it's the short form checklist. There's not a tremendous amount of heavy discussion as the board is going through it, other than discussion amongst the board. So, and then at the end of it, we do have a history of when the permit conditions are being worded for the public to chime in on the wording of the permit conditions. However, the history there is more often than not, the applicant or a defendant is wordsmithing there some. So.
So I would be remiss to just remind you all that from my client's perspective, while we're still in public hearing, if you are going to review the application tonight and not deny it or continue it, we do ask that, likely a condition of approval be that you hire and consider hiring an independent third party to review this application and to determine whether or not blow-offs are necessary and needed. I mean, secondary to that, if you so much as would entertain it, we would also ask that the condition of approval be considered to remove both blow-offs. So beyond that, I know you have a narrow latitude in terms of what you're reviewing tonight relative to the application process, but I would ask you respectfully to consider both of those conditions of approval that I've thrown out on behalf of my clients.
So there's only one law that's in question for this planning board review. The second blow off you approved in Greg Johnston's project. That's already been approved. So we're only talking about one blow off here.
All
Is
right,
that your understanding too, that your client's concerned with one blow off, not?
No, our client, so again, back to the integrated approach, so I don't understand the purview you have here tonight. Paul is right, what we have tonight is, there's one, technically there is that one blow off within the bounds of this project. Because the entire project hasn't been designed as one integrated approach.
Yeah,
The concern is that you don't need both of them. So what I might have asked for, you may not be able to grant, but I would not be doing my clients a service if I didn't ask for that. So that would be my request for the conditional approval.
But you're saying it hasn't been designed as one integrated approach, but it has. I mean, we had our engineering firm, Wood and Kern, with
So we're-
Johnston. We
so-
went through this for 2.5 years of coming up with the design. And that's how Greg designed his project, and that's how we submitted our project.
Oh.
So they're all in conjunction with each other.
So I'm gonna close the public comment now. So. For the record, public comment is closed now. All right, so now it's on the table for the board to move forward with. And first question to the board is, anybody care to make a motion to find the application complete? Is there any discussion about the completeness of the application? Is there any consideration that the application is not complete and more information is needed?
Wow.
Come on, team. Tracy, you're processing.
Yeah, I am, because. That.
You,
Maybe it's not relevant, or maybe it is. I just like to point out to the board that. I think that the plans that are done by a engineer and stamped is what we asked for. And they do somewhat describe where the pipes will run under this system here. But we didn't ask them for any other utilities to be on there, did we? Or did we?
We just asked for engineer drawings.
Mhm.
Are you, what are you
No.
thinking?
I was just thinking about the proximity of things, and so we have water and sewer and electric all under there. Just,
Sewer's in a different trench, not in the
yeah,
same.
it's different trench, but.
Most of the electric's overhead, right? And there's just few property owners that dropped it, isn't that?
Yeah. we got
There's
this
a-
thing right there.
Was that underground?
Yep.
Okay.
So back to the question, does the board feel we have enough information here in the application to review it? Is the application complete?
So we have our initial application, and then we have a supplemental one with different answers.
But we have an updated
Yeah, this one
conditional
with
use
blue
application.
on the top.
Yes, this is the updated one. And updated to correlate with the engineering plans that were submitted on the
Yes,
19th.
the only thing, and I don't think that it necessarily, the only thing that bothers me is that it's not clearly denoted on the engineer's drawing where there is a device that is the same device as every connection to the house. That is the blow off, but there's only one of those devices that's used as a blow off, and it's not noted as being any different than the connections to all the houses. And since it's the issue of concern, the fact that it's not highlighted or given a different notation on the plans or anything.
You can,
But we could do that now. We can say in the official plans, we need to have it have a red circle around this.
Yes.
This is the location of concern.
You can say the application is complete, and then under permit conditions, you can say that a plan is submitted. I better clearly identifying whatever you want identified.
So I would say, I make a motion to find the application complete.
Okay, Tracy Keller, I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gunji, I.
myself, William Hanley, I. All right, and perhaps any motion to use the short form checklist?
Meredith Randolph, I make a motion to use the short form.
Tracy Keller, second.
Right, all those in favor, Meredith,
I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gloria Gunji, I.
myself, William Hanley, I. And I guess I'll ask too if there's, I probably should ask earlier, is there any conflict of interest in this one? And considering that had already been asked at the previous review on the 12th, I wasn't too worried about it. None heard. All right, we're gonna get into the review of this now, and then we do our weird little thing where is any motion to approve the application?
Make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that.
Then we press the pause button and we go through the review of the application. I've got the short form application in front of me, and I've got the applicant's conditional use application too. And we're gonna go through the general performance standards of 6A, B, C, because it's in the shoreland zone, and we're also gonna have to do 5.9, and that's probably what Kim ran off and got. So. All right, 6A1, under general performance standards, compatibility. Compatibility, they talk about the physical size, visual impact, proximity to other structures, and density of development. And there's the description from the applicant under each of those criteria. So C, application and works. Erosion and sedimentation control. We've got a stamped engineered plan with sheet C3 talking about erosion control construction sequence and a detail. See application 6A3, highway safety. We've got a attached public works director's memo dated 9/19 about that. See application, impact on town services, 6A4, I would think it would be improving it. And that's just what the applicant says. See application. 6A5, land suitability. They said that the water main replacement is taking place in Steamboat Wharf Road. It's a public road. And the pipes are allowed there. So C application, lighting outdoor. Yeah, and a stormwater. Applicant talks about the existing ground cover and existing grades are to be restored to existing condition. No changes to surface drainage paths as part of the project. See application. Vegetation. 6A8. The applicant does not have anything circled on here. What do you want to say about vegetation, Paul? You probably should amend the original or you probably should amend your amended application. which,
I don't know. I guess it would be not applicable, because
There's-
we're not doing anything with vegetation at all,
you're not removing trees.
nothing,
So NA, so just you'll have to highlight
okay.
the original and initial it. Dust, fumes, vapors, odors, and gases. Same thing there. Yeah, you'll just. I would assume, Paul, it's gonna be applicable standard met. You're gonna be conscious of dust and fumes and vapors and odors and gases during the completion of this project.
Yeah, I
CF,
see, I mean, I look at the 2 pages, I don't.
yeah, it's at the, it's at the very,
Oh.
very top of
Yep.
page 8.
Yep.
And that's, so then the findings of fact are presented by the applicant, and
I'm sorry, that was the application, yes?
that was C application 689. The findings of fact are presented by the applicant and the see the attached application. And that the and based upon the findings of fact, the conclusion of law is that the proposed use is in compliance with all standards of section 6A, for which the standard has been met.
So moved.
Second,
Right, all those in favor, Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Gloria,
Gloria Kunje, I.
myself, William Hanley, aye. All right, moving on to section 6B, specific performance standards for activities and land uses. So 6B1 agriculture, NA 6B2 air landing sites, NA 6B7 excavation. The applicant says that the total excavation volume is 730 cubic yards. See attached Hancock County Soil Survey. We'll say see application. 6B8 fences and walls, NA 6B16 sign regulations, NA 6B18 wireless communications facilities, NA 6B19 animal husbandry 2, NA, and 6B20 mobile food vendors, NA. So the findings of fact are that the proposed use will include none of the specific activities or land uses described in section 6B, except for section 6B7. And that and based upon the findings of fact, the conclusion was that section 6B is not applicable except for 6B7, for which the standard has been met.
Tracy Keller, so moved.
Meredith Randolph, I second.
All right, all those in favor, Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Gloria,
Kunje, I.
myself, William Hanley, aye. All right,
It's the section that Paul needs to.
yeah, so
He left
Paul,
it.
he section 6A,
8 and 9.
yeah, 6A, 8 and 9.
Say 8, oh, say we didn't mark
Yeah,
any of them.
and
Same for that.
9. All right, so then moving on to section 6C, shoreline zoning standards for review by the planning board. 6C1 agriculture, NA. 6C2 archaeological sites. And-
He's got a letter, he's got an email.
Yeah, he's got the email, C application, 65 essential services. You say applicable standard met. See application, parking areas, NA. Marine and freshwater structure standards, NA, you're not building a pier. 69 roads and driveways. Based upon our review criteria, that is NA. And 6011 water quality.
What water's quality is that?
Yeah. So 6011 water quality, it talks about that no activity shall deposit on or into the ground or discharge into the waters of the state any pollutant by itself or in combination with other activities or substances will impair designated uses or the water classification of the water body, tributary, stream, or wetland. And they say NA.
Well, that's the hot subject is the blow off and
Mhm.
it is discharging. It said it'll just go into the ocean.
Mhm. What do we do about that, Kim? You know, that's gonna come back.
Mhm.
We could ask for a clarification from the applicant about the water being discharged into the ocean or something like that, or.
Yeah. That's good. We can.
And then how's that submitted into the application?
You could do it as a condition.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
it's applicable.
yeah. Okay, Paul, tell us why water quality is NA on your application. Where, it's on record that you were saying that the water released from the blow offs is going into the ocean. So how is the water district addressing, I guess I should rephrase that, how is the water district addressing water quality with water that is being discharged into the ocean?
It's simply drinking.
Mhm.
I suppose we didn't know how to answer that question. Open suggestions as to what you guys think.
Get a letter from the water district as a permit condition, stating that,
I would
Any-
check with DEP too.
yeah. So we get something from DEP and
Oh,
Working on the battery. What happens when people dump their pools? Do they just dump it?
the
Yeah.
daylight, probably, if they.
I don't have pools
Yeah.
down.
People have them.
I'm sure
Pumped
they
out.
have them, like, put them in a water tank. I mean, I don't think you just dump them on the ground. I've never seen them dump them.
No, that is- Anyway,
Get it pumped up by a pump truck and they take it somewhere, but I don't know what they do with it after that.
Have them check, just like you
So what-
said, check with DEP.
But what happens if DEP comes back and says something that's,
Then that's what they get, then they gotta do whatever DEP says.
okay,
They don't want them dumping it into the ocean, then they gotta figure another way to do that.
so in just procedurally, where they have it marked NA, and we're gonna have likely a permit condition asking for something from them and the DEP on.
You can say applicable standard not met with a condition with planning, that they come up, or you can say it's not met, they haven't provided you,
So, yeah.
and it's incomplete. That's your choice.
So then, so on the checklist, I'm gonna say see notes below. Cause I don't have, standard not met. I only have C notes below, C application and NA. So C notes below. And C notes below, we say applicable standard not met. Standard not met, C permit condition.
Either, yeah, you can do that, if you wanna do it as a condition, or you find it
Yeah.
incomplete.
And if we find it incomplete, then it's tabled to a date certain.
Or you deny it. If you
Yeah.
deny it, they can't come back for 9 months.
Yeah. I'm feeling that you say applicable standard not met, C permit condition.
Yeah. We approved another one that has a blow off on it, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit.
All right, so the findings of fact are that the proposed use will include none of the specific activities or land uses described in section 6C, except for 6C2, 6C5, and 6C11. And that the inclusion laws that section 6C is not applicable except for 6C2, 6C5, and 6C11. For which the standard has been met for 6C2 and 6C5, and a permit condition is to address 6C11.
Meredith Randolph, I so moved.
As it relates to the blow off,
As it relates
Right.
to,
Yeah,
because that's really the only,
yeah,
that's discharging.
Is that written?
all I say is in my notes, applicable standard not met, C permit condition. And then we've got to state that in the permit conditions.
All right. Okay. Tracy Keller, second.
Right, all those in,
Okay, so Meredith. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gloria Conje, I.
myself, William Hanley, I don't have 5-9.
There's one on the long form. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. Right, since we're in the shoreline zone, we have to go through section 5-9. And bear with me, 591 will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Say C application. 592 will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface water. See application. 593 will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. They say NA.
Wastewater sewer.
Oh, that's.
Yeah. 594 will not have adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. NA. 595 will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. NA. Will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comp plan. They say NA, but it should really, I think, be C application because you've submitted information to that effect. So I think you need to change 596. 597 will not adversely affect existing commercial fishing or maritime activities in a shoreline commercial district. Say NA. Will avoid problems associated with the floodplain. NA, and is in conformance with the provisions of section 6A, B, and C. Standard has been met, and that the findings of fact are see above, and the conclusion of the law is that the all requirements for section 5.9 have been met.
Meredith Randolph, I so move.
Tracy Keller, second.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gloria Conjay, aye.
myself, William Hanley, aye. All right. We're at permit conditions. So that was 6C11 water quality.
Yeah.
What's the permit condition for 6C11 water quality?
Get a letter from the DEP. Addressing proper disposal of water from the shut off or the blow off.
Letter from letter from Maine DEP addressing water discharge.
Acceptable water discharge. Remain into the ocean, I guess.
In shorelands.
Yeah,
Into
sure.
ocean.
You guys are gonna read this out a little louder, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow, but.
So 6C11 water quality, letter from the Maine DEP addressing water discharge into the ocean from
I need acceptable
acceptable
water discharge of. No, I'm sorry.
acceptable water discharge
Discharge of water from the blow off.
from
What I have so far.
from blow off into ocean.
Okay.
And then what's the other permit condition? Yeah, you want a third party review of this?
Um,
No, certificate.
Travis, what permit condition wording comes to mind?
he doesn't have an acceptable, he's not accepting
Mhm.
any of this. He won't say that.
Yeah, I'm asking you a question.
So as I stated in public comment, I'll try to reiterate, I'll actually read here to make sure that I get it completely right, you know, in terms of what I know my clients are like. You know, since an integrated project review by a single engineer. To review the integrated project as a whole. And as I noted earlier, respectfully requesting timely abandonment of blow-offs at number 13 and number 19 Steamboat Wharf Road.
I'm sorry, can you read that last half one more time? I'm trying to.
Sorry, timely abandonment
Timely.
of the blow-offs. And 1-inch pipes at number 13 and number 19 Steamboat Wharf Road.
And 1-inch line, did you say? I'm sorry.
Yes.
13 and 19.
You're saying that you're referencing, the properties are not. Are you saying the blow offs in the middle between the two, or?
Sorry.
I thought there was just one blow off. That was the issue. And 13 and 19, at least the buildings aren't that close together.
Right, so with respect to this project, then the
Third party
time we've been
review of total system for the potential
On 13, okay.
remove.
if it's
For the
been
potential
decided here
blow off
tonight that
removal at
19 is
number
not within
13 and
purview
19 properties.
application, then but that would be the request ultimately the client would like to have both of them.
19 is in the Ringing Point project, is that what? Okay,
So essentially, it's third party review of the total system operation for the potential removal of blow offs at the number 13 and 19 properties.
well, 19 apparently isn't part of this project.
Number 13.
It's only 13.
I would also say that, if, ultimately, if the engineers can all come together, and continue the conversation, we would be amicable to that as well.
Why don't we just keep it at that, and then they should be able to figure it out among themselves.
Yeah. We haven't been able to so far, but yes. Mhm.
So ultimately, the third party review, looking at the integrated project or the 3 sets of engineers or however many that have been involved in this project along with us to come together to review.
Is that, or say that at the end, a third party has to come and review the blow off and determine whether it can be abandoned? I guess the problem.
So, well, all we're saying is that, look, these guys have to review the potential of blow off removal at property number 13.
But we already have Paul saying it doesn't matter if we have it reviewed, he's still gonna insist that it be put in. And if it doesn't, if,
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Kim, I've got a question for you. So if we determine that we're gonna wait till the spring to do this project, what do we have to do in terms of this planning approval process? In other words,
You have to start it within 12 months from their approval.
okay, so
Mhm.
then this would still count towards that. In
Yeah,
other words, if we waited.
if you waited till next November,
I'm
then-
thinking
yeah,
in
yep,
back
yep.
ahead, if we waited until Greg Johnston's project was completed.
Mhm.
And then we had the ability to look at that water quality issue
Mhm.
with just his section done, not our section. Then that might tell us something.
Yeah.
And then,
But you have a year
okay.
from
so
the
we
date
have
of
a
their
year.
approval to get it going, starting it.
Right, because I'm thinking that that's what we're gonna have to do. That we would then try to begin our project in the spring. But I'd like to keep whatever this process is
Yep.
open.
Yep.
To follow the steps that you need us to do.
Yep.
But, that might tell us something.
Yep.
And therefore might influence what we do here.
Provided that, again, it's up to you. I just want to make sure it's clear that what our conditions would be.
Well, I was just gonna ask Heidi to read back whatever she might
I've
have.
got it written here. I can actually.
well, but the whole thing that Paul is just talking about, if he delays it, it means. As far as what I'm understanding is you're saying if Ringing Point's up and going, you can test it and you can come to a comfortable decision as to whether you can abandon the blow off at 13. So all of this stuff, if he can become comfortable with 13 can be the blow off at 13 can be abandoned on its own without all the participation of these engineers. It's a nice solution.
Right.
Just what do we now that we've gone all the way through? Well, we don't accept the application at this point because we don't know whether there's a blow off. So we are therefore going to have to table the application.
I think you could approve it with the conditions that we've noted, so. What we've been debating here tonight is whether Paul's right or I'm right, really at the end of the day, and. If you were to follow the path you just said, you then have now said that Paul's right, no additional engineering is required. So what we offered for a condition was that an integrated project review by a single engineer, could be a peer review. Or all three sets of engineers coming together to review the integrated project as a whole. So what I heard Paul say was if Greg's project, Rating Point's project is built, he can get some information. I would still offer that the engineers come together to work together to evaluate the information and work together to determine if the blow-offs are necessary or not.
I'm
So-
saying what Meredith said.
I
I'm saying what Meredith said, which was, we have an opportunity to review that data. We might then make a determination at that point in time to eliminate the blow-offs, which is what your client is looking for.
And my client's concern is that we have an
They want a third party
independent
review.
review.
Paul wants to do it himself.
Of the whole line.
Right.
And or the three of us getting together to come to terms.
What do
I
you
do-
mean,
I do-
independent
I-
review?
I
If we
do not
really
believe
stop
that it's
the
gonna be
blow-offs.
acceptable that the district it will not be acceptable that the district will just arbitrarily
I'd
say
say
they can stay or they can be removed.
but it's Paul's application. So if Paul says, I want to stall this till September, we haven't gone all the way through. I'd say that he has the right to say, I'm pulling it right now. Stop.
Do you want to pull your application? Is that what
Well,
you're
I
saying?
don't know the protocol, and that's why I deferred to Kim.
We've never quite had somebody come to this point in the application process.
Yeah.
Well, if you withdraw it
You know, I see
or ask to
going
have
on
it
here.
tabled,
We're going for, we could end up with, I'm sorry, the appeals process, and we're getting further and further down the road. And that's why I wanted to make sure that this was acceptable to you guys, if that is an option for us, then that's something that we might do. And,
That's up to you guys.
and if we feel comfortable with data that we see at that point in time, we could.
You're still
What
gonna
you
have to go through the same process, so
Well, whatever.
you're gonna have to come back with a
Right.
convincing argument that you got everything, all your ducks in order
Right.
and the information's good, and you can object to it at that time and try to get the engineers. But if you wanna pull, I guess, I don't see any reason why at this point he can't say, just stop.
The applicant can pull their application at any point in the process prior to final approval. I would just, if I was in the room waiting 3 hours for my project to be heard, I'd probably be kind of pissed though, if that were to happen.
I don't go through these things every day. I'm
thankfully,
don't-
right?
right, and I appreciate that you guys have to go through all the time. But, after hearing the discussion and hearing suggestions in terms of how to approach this situation, and I think, why not come to some solution that is gonna make some sense ultimately? And I think that might be where I'm at. I can't say that, but I think that let's go ahead and have Greg finish his project is where I'm leaning towards. And as long as it doesn't hurt our standing, that, if there's any modifications we have to do to this application to reflect exactly what our feelings are and the fact that, we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna abandon those blow-offs and not put them in, then we're gonna make that statement. And that solves the issue for you guys. So I don't think I can do anything more than that.
I don't know what that answer is. Are you pulling your application or are we finalizing the permit conditions and voting on this?
I don't know.
You don't, why do you not, I mean, the ball is in your court, you need to decide, we are about to approve your application with these conditions.
So if you approve it with those conditions, and then
You
we
cannot
determine-
go for, even in the next spring, if you want to go forward with this, you have to achieve
Right,
our permit
You know,
conditions.
what I want to avoid is going through this whole appeal process and doing all that stuff.
Anybody can file an appeal.
I know,
you know.
I know, but why go through all that if
Well,
in
that's-
fact,
that's-
we end up doing exactly what they wanted us to
If
do?
you think you can make everybody happy after the rain point process,
Right,
then I would say, if you think after that's done, you can make these guys happy without hiring engineers, I would pull this permit. If you let us go through with the permit, you will have to hire the engineers because that's the condition that
You
we
know,
put on it.
Paul,
So,
we have had applications in the past that haven't quite gotten to this point. But that, you know, it's pretty clear through the process that maybe pressing the pause button, going back and doing whatever they need to do and coming back before the board, you know, where it's not a continuation to a date certain, you know, has been beneficial to the application process. You know, we've seen, you know, like think of some of those crazy non-conforming, you know, projects
Yeah.
that, you know, the applicant might have just not had all the ducks in the row yet, and they pulled the application, got their ducks in a row and came back and went through it and got it approved. Not that I'm telling the applicant to do one thing or the other, but you gotta make a decision here.
okay, so one option is to pull the application. And then what would I have to do in the future? Yeah.
Well, if you want to, you still need to get planning board approval to put in that 700-foot
Oh, I know,
section.
I know, I'm saying we don't put in the 700-foot section now.
Right, you
Until
wait
I
till
get your-
spring,
Planning board approval. But at this point in time,
but you want to wait until Greg finishes his line, is
yes,
what you're saying.
yes,
So you'll want to come back and do whatever analysis you need to do. And then you have to come back and go through this process.
all over again is the way to do it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what you would have to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
Because if you were drawing it tonight, they haven't finalized it. You don't want them to deny it because then you can't come back for 9 months.
An engineer.
so if it's denied, I
If it's
can't, go-
denied, you can't come back for 9 months.
so that's crazy.
But that's
I know.
unfortunately the process.
Yeah, no,
Or you can go through the process and then do the conditions that the planning board has. Or you can appeal them.
right, but it also sounds like we're staring at appeals and delays anyway. And so to avoid all that, I'm saying then we should be pulling our application. And go through what I just said to you guys, get that done, and then resubmit the planning board application.
Fine.
Okay. I think that's the way to go.
Hope for no fires.
And hope for no fire.
No big fires.
so that's official. You just pulled your application.
Pardon?
That's official. You just pulled your application.
Withdrawing your application,
Please.
you guys gotta vote. Vote what?
Wait,
Okay,
Head
what was
of, Head of
happening?
Fine Engineering has their hand up, it looks like.
Oh,
Yeah, this is a little atypical. I was mostly tied in as a spectator tonight and was in and out because with multiple people talking at the same time, you couldn't really hear a whole lot on Zoom. But I just wanted to ask a question if I could. Is there an opportunity for the water district to have a hybrid condition where part A of the condition would be ringing points extension happens, the testing happens, and an amicable solution on these blow-offs can be reached between Mr. Midland and the water district, and that would satisfy? Or if that is not, then you go option B, which is what's been discussed and tossed out there with a third party. I hate to see someone sit here for nearly 3 hours and pull an application to know that this is going to repeat itself a few months down the road. So just wanted to offer that idea, if that's something to be considered or not, and that's all.
So is that something that Travis would
Actually
consider?
raining.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Travis, is that something that's amenable to you, or what would you like to do?
I mean, it's ultimately your application. I mean, I stated what we believe our conditions of approval would be. So ultimately, it'd be great if we could work together to find a solution here. I stated the conditions that my client's accepting of.
So what Rennie said is not a solution that you entertain, or how do you feel about that?
Again, you're the applicant. I can't really answer that. Obviously, Paul, we'd like to work with you moving forward. So irregardless of this process, we want to work with you to make sure that.
I feel like you get the system up and running and complete, and you guys work out whatever you need to work out, and you
Right.
come back with the application. And I would hope that it's just a much more streamlined process at that point.
Yeah, again, I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at me to answer the question that he, we obviously have to communicate with the water district, and we want a successful project. Like I said, I want to reiterate. My client is supportive of the Ringing Point project. The concern is the two ends, and how it all works together. So we want to make sure that, that's been evaluated. So I think the path that I've heard most recently from Paul will help us arrive at that solution perhaps. That's what I'm.
So I'm gonna pull the application. I mean, if there's nothing clear cut from Travis or his client, I cannot risk waiting another time,
So,
9 months, whatever, so that's.
so any motion on the board then to accept the applicant's withdrawal of the application?
Meredith Randolph, I make a motion, we accept the applicant's withdrawal of the application.
Tracy Keller, second.
All right, all those in favor, Meredith,
Aye.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gloria Conje, aye.
myself, William Hanley, aye. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you, guys.
Why are you thanking them for
I Well, that was heavy monotone sarcasm. Heavy,
Okay, let's go.
right.
Are
So-
we,
Yeah, you got another one.
do we have to? What is,
Yes.
No.
Because they can't come back with this number. It's not gonna be sit here.
They can't come back to this, yeah, because there's only one hearing
Right.
next.
And this is a
Thank you.
amendment to.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
thank you.
and this is, it's an amendment to
Yeah.
a previously approved application,
And
right?
Bill can,
You got abstained.
I gotta abstain.
So you need
I'm
to
not their
you need
agent,
to
but, or anything,
vote in a
but,
chair, acting chair.
but I gotta introduce the project first, though.
You can, yep, could you have to go through the conflict of interest?
the morning when it's a.
Not really.
No. it's
Well, I mean, you
not.
don't go through section 6, it's this section.
We don't go through the whole.
You don't,
conditional
you don't go
use
through all
application
section 6.
review.
You got a whole.
Yeah, well, these don't happen often, that's. what
Yeah. So, all right, item B on the conditional use approval applications tonight, we've got conditional use approval application 16/2022. Name Cherry Bomb LLC, applicant is Eliza and William Bishop. Location is 1-3 Old Firehouse Lane, Northeast Harbor, tax map 24 lot 108-001, zone is village commercial. And the purpose is section 5.6 amendment to approve previously approved conditional use approval application, and that was CUA 006/2013, and it's a restaurant use. We had a site inspection at 3:30, and was this one advertised and the butters notified?
Yes, this was advertised in the October 27th newspaper edition, and the butters notices went out October 24th.
Right, and I'll ask, did anybody make it to the site inspection today? Gloria,
Anybody?
anybody?
Nobody,
All right.
nobody showed up?
Bill,
it out.
Bill made it.
Okay, then.
All right. No site report then I guess I'll ask if there's any conflict of interest on the board, and yes. I have conflict of interest because Eliza and Billy are clients of ours, so I'm gonna have to recuse myself.
I make a motion to accept that Bill's recusing himself.
Okay, and then I make a motion to appoint,
Second.
second, sorry, I'll second that.
So all those in favor then? Meredith,
Randolph, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
yes, you can vote, and Gloria.
Yeah, aye.
So I recuse myself, so I've been recused, so then. Then,
Well, Tracy's gonna be vice. But yeah, but you're not ready yet. Okay.
so you guys gotta vote someone in as chair then.
Can you be chair for this?
Well, make a motion.
Tracy Keller, I make a motion to nominate Meredith as chair for this particular hearing.
Somebody else has to second. it.
Gloria, I second that motion for Meredith to chair this particular item or issue.
All right, all those in favor, Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Gloria,
Gloria, I.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
I don't vote,
Doesn't vote.
and Meredith.
I don't have to condemn myself, do I? Randolph, I.
Tracy Keller, I. All right, did that? Okay.
Yeah, all right.
All right, Meredith is now chair. Acting chair.
Wish I was dead. So how does it, okay, so we have a conditional, Bill ran through all that.
Mhm.
I really wanted to say Cherry Bomb LLC. So this is a amendment to a existing permit that was applied for in 2013. Do you as the applicant want to make a little presentation about what your application?
Ooh, sure. I mean, just broad strokes for renovating a building that we just bought after renting it for 11 years. So we're doing some pretty major, like replacing the roof and things like that, but the meat of this application has to do with a little bump out that we're doing in the back. With 2 bathrooms and a little office, so I think that's probably the.
Yeah, so it's a 300 square foot addition. And right now, as of the existing conditions now, the bathrooms are inside the existing building and we want to open up the space and move them into the addition. And also add a mechanical room and an office as well. So it's 15 by 20 addition on the south side of the existing building.
Where there was once a big deck with like existing.
Yeah. And so in addition, there'll be a 12 by 12 foot deck off of that on the south side as well. And then an 8 by 8, 64 square foot walk-in bridge, all on the same side.
I don't know if it matters, but this is all in the same, or within the same area that the previous business, like there was building or a deck in all of the areas that we are.
Yeah, where we're building in, there used to be a 15 by 30 something foot deck. And when we first started renting, the previous owner tore that off, and now it's just a gravel area that runs 15 feet by like 50 feet on the south side of the building.
And Kim, as this is. It's commercial use,
Right.
but the use isn't changing.
Nope. But it's
So
a
why is it not just a building?
well, it's expansion of the restaurant.
Expansion.
See, because this is currently the footprint,
Yeah.
so this is. So back here is where they're talking,
Mhm.
and so it's, instead of that. This is what's being added. And it
Yep,
used
I
to
got
be a
that.
deck at one point, but like they said, it got torn off. The first year you said you
Yeah.
leased it,
Yeah, exactly.
and so now they're building a new footprint, 300 square feet of new
Mhm.
building footprint, that's gonna be expansion of the restaurant. Use,
Okay.
that's
So
why it's before you, and it's an amendment to. The previously.
they previously got approved as.
Well, this has been a restaurant for quite a while, but back in 2013. Eliza came before you guys to do a shed and then catering space. So it was an amendment to a previous one before that, because this has been restaurant use for quite a while. You might remember Bassa,
Mhm.
was there, and all the stuff you guys dealt with that. And then they left, so, and before that, I believe it was also restaurant use. So the building's been restaurant all along. Bassa did some expansions. I think they did this lane here when they did it. And then they had the deck. Bassa put the deck, big deck out, which got torn down, and now they're doing their addition on the back. So it's always an amendment to a previously approved.
Yeah, the other
initially.
bigger part of the renovation is that addition that Vasa added on. They kind of did it and pitch of the roof was all wrong. They didn't flush it properly. It's all rotting away.
Mhm.
So part of the renovation is tearing that section down and rebuilding, repouring a new slab and then meeting. Right now, it's a shed roof that comes off at that's much lower. So we want to continue the gable roof into that section that we're gonna tear off. So it would be a continuous roof line.
And that's this piece over here.
That's the back piece.
Yeah. So that's this,
I think in the
this piece,
survey map, it's highlighted.
yeah,
Mhm.
in pink, yep. See that?
Yes, I do.
But that's all footprint, it's existing.
But that's the same footprint and the same
Yes.
use and everything, so
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not really
no.
part of
No,
this,
but they're
it's the
letting you
additional
know,
space, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they're removing that 8x8 shed.
Does everybody follow that on the board? Yes,
So this is the application.
thank
Board
you.
amendment. And what I would suggest, sometimes these questions should, they're backwards.
So she started at the back end.
Yeah, just, yeah, no, I just. That's just sections that you gotta follow.
Oh, so did we need to discuss if it was properly advertised?
I already did that,
We already discussed that, oh,
Yeah.
probably when Bill
when
was.
Bill did it.
So do we have a motion to find the application complete?
Yeah, okay. I, Tracy Keller, will make a motion to find the application complete.
Dave Ashmore, second.
All those in favor, Gloria,
Gloria Kunje, aye.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Meredith Randolph, aye. Now we need a motion to approve the application. It's all the same as the amendments. Yeah,
That part, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Tracy Keller, I make a motion to approve the application.
Dave Ashmore, second.
Then we pause and we go back and review it. So. No proposed or existing building premise or land use authority as conditional use may be established, enlarged, modified, structures altered, or otherwise changed for the, from that approved in the conditional use permit unless such amendment is authorized in accordance with the standards and procedures set forth in this ordinance, and the conditional use permit and approved site plan are amended accordingly. So we have finding of facts.
So you got first one, you gotta read.
Oh, findings that there have been significant changes of conditions or circumstances. So do we find significant changes to the conditions or circumstances. Oh, of this, so this is just to say there's a change, so there's a significant change to the structure. Yeah. So the finding of fact is that there is a significant change to the structure. Conclusion of law is,
I think that would be the conclusion of law, that there's significant change.
finding of fact to see application, I guess, the conclusion of law. Based on this plan submitted, there's a significant change to the physical structure. Do we want to have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
I'm sorry, can you
Oh.
say that one more time? Based on the plan
Probably
submitted,
not.
there is a significant change of conditions or circumstances?
significant change to the structure.
Oh, thank you.
So we still need a second.
Dave Ashmore, second.
All those in favor, Gloria,
Gloria Kunje, aye.
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
and Meredith Randolph, aye. In conformity with the procedure and substantive stance. I need it.
You need to go to bed.
Yeah, I do. Requirements set forth in section 6A and the applicable standards of section 6B and C. Oh, so now we have to go back to 6A and 6B and 6C.
They have submitted a conditional use, you can go through it if you want, or you can say it's that they've met all the standards.
There we go.
Only 6A is gonna apply. 6B and
I
C.
think we better breeze over 6A.
Yeah,
And 6B and C are both shoreline.
no, 6B is.
6B is, oh, it's
Uses that are not in this,
airplane
yeah,
strips
yeah,
and so
right,
forth.
right.
And then
So go through 6A.
okay, 6A, is it compatible?
Hmm.
They have a description of the physical size, the visual impact, minimal. Addition is on the south side of the building, roof height of the addition is 2 feet below the roof height of the main building. Proximity to other structures. Nearest building is Artemis, southwest corner of the proposed addition is 20 feet from northeast corner of Artemis.
Oh, gosh. Sorry.
And nobody's here from Artemis to have any problem with that. Density, not interested in density of no increase. That's what that says. That's okay. For some reason, I was reading your C as an E. So anyway. And
So it's compatible, restaurant
So-
use is compatible within the village commercial zoning district. Yes.
does everyone agree with that? Erosion and sedimentation control, so silt fencing will be put up during construction to control erosion, so,
Should have put C attached as well.
Yeah,
Sorry.
fine, he's got a drawing in there
yeah.
on the site plan that he drew.
And, okay, so that's. Okay. Both of the checks are NA. But that is correct, anyway. Highway safety. Don't see that this has any impact on highway safety. Off-street parking is available, it's not a change to that. Impact on town services. This project will not burden the capacity of the town's facilities. 6A5 is land suitability. See attached sheet. 6A6 is lighting. See attached sheet. Stormwater,
Site plan. It shows it on the site plan.
okay, C application. Vegetation. 3 trees will be removed along the property border of the south side. Removal is for access. We plan to plant back the trees and the shrubs. Thank you. 6A9 is dust, fumes, vapors, odors, and gases. Applicable, is there a submission on that or something? It says applicable standard met.
Yeah, I was.
I'd say probably not applicable, because you're
That's
not
what I
having
was
any
wondering.
cooking in
Yeah,
there,
I think I
right?
would-
Yeah.
It's just office space storage, mainly.
Okay,
I amend that.
Yeah. We'll just have you come initial, Eliza, or both of you, either one. Your legs are cramped from sitting so long.
no, that's good, it's good.
Thank you so much.
And let's review this all as since on the amendment, the 3 sections are together and Kim is telling us that the other 2
Yeah,
sections.
6B,
don't
yeah,
apply.
section 6B and C are not applicable.
So findings of fact are,
The applicable sections of section 6 have been met.
does that work for you, Heidi?
Is that the conclusion or is that the finding?
The finding is usually the application, the finding of fact is that section 6A had sections,
About section 6A was reviewed.
6A was review, C application, and 6B and C are not applicable. Well, no, that'd be the conclusion of law.
Has the standard been met?
Finding of fact is C application.
You can say all of section 6B is not applicable, and then 6C is not applicable because it's not in the shoreline zone.
But isn't that the finding of fact or the conclusion of law?
Would it be? Just restate number 2.
In conformity with procedural
Procedural.
requirements of set, yep,
That would be the conclusion, yes.
yes. I see, I don't understand.
What? I don't even understand what it's trying to say.
It's far too late.
It just sounds like the same question over again. Does my brain just stop functioning
No, it's
altogether?
weird question.
It's like
When
a-
justified by a statement of findings of facts and reasons. For what? The amendment?
Who, where,
The amendment.
what?
The amendment? Or justified by a statement of findings of facts and reasons. You can just say C application.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Is that that's the finding of fact, yes?
Yeah,
And then the conclusion of law is that it is in conformity with the procedural. And since that,
what justified a statement of findings of facts and reasons.
For the previous question, did you need somebody to be making the motion and we need to vote on it? Because
we need a motion and second.
I guess you can say like this, when justified by a statement of findings of facts and reasons. That changes to an approved conditional use permit, other than minor changes. In the placement and size of improvements requires an amendment to a conditional use approval by the planning board.
Okay, I don't even know where that goes.
Under, sorry, there's a number 3.
Oh, we're on.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
still gotta make a motion.
Okay, so we did a motion, second, and vote on number 1. I do not have that on number 2.
We need a motion for number
We should
2,
probably stay.
which was about a section 6A, 6B, and 6C, which we said that the standard that C application, what do we have written there?
What I have is C application, section 6A was reviewed, section 6B and C are not applicable. That was the finding of fact, and the conclusion of law is that the amendment is in conformity with the procedural and substantive requirements set forth in section A and the applicable standards of section 6B and C.
Could I just say so moved?
Yes.
No, repeat it.
Great.
Gloria, are you seconding it?
Yes, I'll second everything that was.
All of it. All right, all those in favor, Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Gloria,
Gloria, I.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, aye.
and Meredith Randolph, aye.
All right.
And then the last,
The last one, it says, when justified by a statement of findings of facts and reasons. So an amendment to a conditional use approval.
This is the finding of fact or conclusion of law.
We should do anything with 5.9.
No, that's waterfront.
Okay, an amendment to a conditional use approval.
Is justified by findings of facts and conclusions of law. When changes to a previously approved conditional use
Hold on. Yeah,
other than minor changes.
Yeah.
In the size of improvements,
size of improvements, okay,
shall require an amendment.
okay,
By the planning board.
okay.
And then the findings of fact is that was that the conclusion of law? Yes. That the proposed
If the standard has been met.
well, yeah, just say,
Oh, no, this is a finding.
no, yeah, but this is the findings of fact. That the proposed additions. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but.
And improvements.
Yeah, and improvements. As submitted. Require conditional use amendment, is that make sense or no? Is that a conclusion?
The proposed additions and improvements as submitted require conditional use amendments.
Additional, yeah, require conditional use approval amendments. That's fine with that. Or you could just say see application because of what they provided, and then the conclusion law is what I said. That makes sense.
Like the C application instead.
Yeah.
Love the
Any
C
conditions?
application. Thank you very much. Do we have somebody that wants to make that a motion or
I
say that their motion?
so moved. That's a wonderful motion.
We have a second?
Dave Ashmore, second.
All those in favor, Gloria,
Gloria Kunje,
Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Meredith Randolph, aye. And so then we go, do we have any
conditions?
conditions? Does anybody see any reason to have any conditions? No, okay. And then we go back and vote. So all those in favor of approving a application, Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Gloria,
Gloria Kunje,
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
and Meredith Randolph, aye. There you go.
Wow, you guys.
That could have been so easy, just think.
Looking over a small.
Yes. Amazing.
11:09.
Okay, thank you so much. Who am I? I don't know.
First.
And then we'll just find.
10 years that they went through it that far and argued it that hard and they yanked it.
Gloria and Dave, we need you guys to come in and sign this decision.
all
As soon
right.
as you-
Yeah, you know, I can always run down over there and sign it right now, right? But I'm not gonna do it tomorrow.
You have to get out of your pajamas.
No, I'll come by tomorrow in the morning.
Bill, if you want to be chair again for the last 2 minutes, but did we have to elect a new vice chair in this meeting? Are we doing that?
Vice chair.
Now you're coming into the building
We
permit for
want
me.
Bill on as a voting member to do that, wouldn't he?
I know. Can we do it the next meeting or does it have to be, do we have to?
So I've already submitted the permit, so I guess we have to go through all.
Good
the
night.
additional stuff, right?
Do it the next meeting because the Board of Selectmen still. I think only emailed Derwin.
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Let's do it. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anyone want to second that?
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, Dave,
Dave Ashmore, aye.
Gloria,
Gloria Kunje,
Tracy,
Tracy Keller, I.
Meredith Randolph, aye.
Yay.
all right.
Did we adjourn?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was talking.
Good night.
Have a good night.
You too.